Describe in single words only the good things that come into your mind. About your mother?
My mother?
Yeah.
Let me tell you about my mother.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
Have you ever been in an institution? Cells.
Cells.
Do they keep you in a cell? Cells.
Cells.
When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells.
This causes it. This causes it. This causes it. Information overload. All the electronics around you poisoning the airwaves.
You are listening to the High Tech Low Life podcast, a cyberpunk media retrospective. High Tech Low Life contains language and themes not suitable for all audiences, as well as spoilers for the content being covered. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the High Tech Low Life podcast with your hosts, Eric and Josh. I'm Eric.
I'm Josh.
And once again, we have third mic, Geoff from Astronomica.
I am Geoff. Hello.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, we're all here.
Good to be back. Yep.
We're acting like we just are picking up recording where we left off last week, but we've actually had a week. So there's actually been things that have happened in the world that I guess we should address.
Number one, the director of
No Other Land.
No Other Land has been released from mystical Black Bag Land. So that's great.
Good. Yeah.
The remaining slightly ill feeling making sort of the story is that the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences put out a release since we recorded last week's podcast.
Yeah.
Saying in very non-committal lawyer language, we don't think that bad things should happen to people.
Yeah.
Then the entirety of the Academy and all of the film spaces I'm on online said, "What the fuck was that? You didn't even mention his name, for God's sake." And then I think it was Friday, the heads of the Academy said, okay, maybe we screwed up and we weren't quite as strong in our statement as we should have been that people shouldn't be black-bagged and tortured.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we're doing all tomorrow's parties this week again.
It's true. All tomorrow's parties part 2. I did dive in. We do have a hard out at some point, so we got a lot of book to get through, so we're kind of rushing a bit. That's it. Hard is only out. It is in no other state.
Okay. Just thought I'd check.
I know where your head's at, Josh. So.
It's out.
Out?
Yes, penis jokes. Good times. I hadn't heard about the Academy talking about that. I had heard that he'd been returned, which was kind of a relief. Not that he's one guy in a sea of dead people.
It was, the Academy's statement was truly fucking stomach turning. It was the most mealy-mouthed shit. It was very much a anticipatory compliance.
Good stuff.
If we don't want Trump to defund the Oscars? ? We should never mention a Palestinian person.
Yeah.
I mean, the administration is really setting it up that you are not doing yourself any favors mentioning Palestinian people, for sure, which is horrifying.
But also, you are not doing any favors with appeasement. It's like we turned into an entire nation of Neville Chamberlains all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. It's scary.
Yeah, it's that. I don't know. It's on the one hand, it's kind of like the thing that I said months ago about how I always anticipated that, shit would turn bad in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I assumed it would be like a quote marks cool evil. Like, there'd be plots and intelligence behind it and actual 4D chess.
Sweet summer child.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was just going to be fucking dumb.
I always assumed it'd be more climate related. And that's going to get us. Don't worry. We're getting there. I thought it would come first.
That's on the way. I did not, and I always assumed like, oh, sure, of course, based on everything I know about history, a bunch of the population is just going to be like, yeah, I don't know, the economy? Egg prices? I did not understand just how quick the rollover would be. Like, wow. Even the absolute liberal elite of the fucking AMPAS said, oh, sorry, Daddy Trump.
Well, hence the old expression, scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds.
Yeah.
It's,
not ideal.
Sadly true, yeah.
Suboptimal times.
There's a lot of folks who love quoting MLK's I Have a Dream and don't want to read Letters from a Birmingham Jail.
Yeah.
I think that's where the quote about beware the white liberal came from.
Yes, it absolutely is. I have had to roll out that fucking quotation too many goddamn times in the past 10 years.
Yeah.
This week we've also got to witness the fallout of the breaking news we had last week, which was the crazy text chain signal gate situation. And I think it's hilarious that they've just decided to go with the cheating husband defense of just deny.
Yeah.
Just deny reality.
Yeah.
No, that isn't classified.
Yeah, the active war plans for like the specifics of an impending combat.
Right.
It's not, don't worry about it.
And all their defenses are, well, it wasn't not classified.
Yeah. Which don't get me wrong, like I am not a fan of the military industrial complex.
What?
In any way, shape, or form.
That is not what I've heard about you, Geoff.
Yeah. But
this is the area that Geoff and I do not like.
Yeah.
I thought
when there's a guy standing against the wall holding a nail to his head and hands you a hammer, don't fail to nail him to the wall. When that guy is evil, like objectively, aggressively evil.
And the fact that this is just such a fun, different version of, but her emails.
Yeah.
The amount of press it's getting is fucking chef's kiss.
I really hate pointing out hypocrisy because it's utterly pointless and dumb and it's just life at this point. But it's real bad on this one. It's real hard to resist on this one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just fun times.
I'm beginning to suspect that this was not about egg prices or emails at any point.
Oh no.
Yeah. Weird.
Have we been duped?
I hope that doesn't make me a cynic.
Oh God.
Don't worry. You're safe.
Okay.
No one would ever say that.
Thank you.
I actually had a message this week that basically said, and this was out of the blue, I always thought you were being too cynical and too glass half empty about politics. And now I'm starting to come around to your side. And it took every bit of self-control I had to not go, really?
I've had a few I told you so moments, and they don't feel as good as one and I told you so. They feel really hollow.
Yeah, I want them to feel better.
It is a thin gruel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is. Would have much preferred to be wrong.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I would have much preferred to have been wrong. Almost exactly the same tenor that I much would have preferred to have been wrong the first time I saw Dave Matthews Band's Ants Marching video on MTV, and I said, "Oh no, this is going to be huge."
Oh, I thought you said, "Oh no, that guy is going to dump a load of shit on a bunch of tourists in Chicago." Was it Chicago? I don't know. He dumped a bunch of shit on people.
Yes, it was Chicago, the Chicago River.
And oddly enough, they actually tried the Pete Hegseth defense of, "Oh, we didn't do it. That wasn't us. That was somebody else. It wasn't that bad."
Yeah.
What really is frustrating is they're focusing on the mistake of letting the dude letting the journalist into the chat, which that's extremely stupid and they should be made fun of for it. But like, they shouldn't have the chat. It shouldn't exist. That's the real problem.
That's one of the most interesting things I find about this whole thing is none of the articles are about, hey, yeah, they were clearly doing this specifically to avoid freedom of information requests and national records archiving stuff. That they're very much focused on the, oh, how did this happen? And, you know, as opposed to the why did this happen thing.
It's bizarre.
The larger why of should we be bombing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know,
that doesn't even get a mention.
No.
30 out of 55 people who are civilians. Half of those of which are children.
Yeah.
Oh man, this
which
place.
You know, and the blockade was in part because of the genocide being perpetrated in Yemen, and also in solidarity for the genocide being perpetrated in Gaza, and now the West Bank as well.
Do you guys think we're going to go to war for Greenland?
You know what? I have recalibrated my my political compass, my political guide stone, and so now I think it was a writer for The Onion who said, I look for whatever the stupidest possible outcome could be, and that's what I now predict will happen.
Yeah.
It's
go
to war against NATO. That would be something.
It would be.
Sure would.
Be. Like, I mean, you know, if we're looking for a third act twist, that's it. You know, if we're doing a movie that starts at the end of World War II, that would be a third act twist.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, they were evil. It would be the end of Minority Report. Oh shit, Christopher Plummer was evil all along? My God.
Or like Ocean's 11, where after they assembled the gang, they broke into a jail and then locked themselves up.
Yep.
I'm just going to say, I don't think we should do it. That's just my opinion. Don't cancel me.
I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb. And Geoff, you can disconnect from the chat anytime you'd like. I'm going to say that is High Tech Low Life's official stated opinion.
Let's not invade Greenland.
I didn't realize I was on a chat with anti-Semites.
Cut that.
Oh boy. Okay, let's end this so we can get closer to talking about a happy story in which the main character dies in a cardboard box.
Oh.
But first of all, let's do some. We got recommendos. Want to knock a recommendo out real quick?
Yeah,
Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I've got a few, most of which will take like 30 seconds.
All right,
like
I'm timing.
Hundreds of Beavers, a movie that I think technically is a 2022 thing. It's nearly silent. It is about a guy killing hundreds and hundreds of beavers.
Okay.
Except they aren't beavers. They're people in mascot costumes.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to interject. Like, the best way I've heard to describe it is live action Looney Tunes.
Absolutely. That is the specific reason I bring it up. Because we on this show love live action Looney Tunes bullshit. There are giant hammers with the bonk sound.
Wow.
Like people just dropping into holes that suddenly appear in the ground. It's like 90 minutes. It's on, I think, Amazon Prime right now. And it should have won so many fucking awards because it cost like, I don't know, $50,000 or something. And is a beautiful thing that will last until movies stop being a thing, because I think it's honestly entirely cultureless. Like, there is no context you need for this movie to make it work.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what if Buster Keaton were still making movies today? Almost.
Yes. Yeah, it's just tons of dumb, beautiful physical gags.
I'm going to speak for the audience who hasn't heard of this and say that I'm utterly confused as to what this thing is you're even talking about. A 90-minute show about killing hundreds of beavers who are actually mascots, but it's Looney Tunes and there's lots of gags.
So
it makes no sense.
It's tough to describe. It is the narrative of a fur trapper in the Yukon who wants to get beaver pelts to buy to get money to win the girl from her dastardly venal fur trading post father. And so so in the reality of the scenario, like the beavers are actual beavers, but they are portrayed by people wearing beaver mascot costumes.
Yeah, like you would see at a high school game.
And it obeys all of the laws of like cartoon physics, for want of a better word. Like if you light your foot on fire, you don't notice that your foot's on fire till you smell the smoke and then look down and then go yow.
Yeah, okay. This does not occur in the film.
You could walk off a cliff and keep walking until you...
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the example I was going for. It doesn't occur in the film that I recall, but it would totally fit in the world 1,000%.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds absurd.
What if Wile E. Coyote was trying to catch 100 Roadrunners, but it was live action? Watch it with a big group too, because it's one of those ones that benefits from like you laugh a little bit, your friend laughs a little bit. It feeds off of each other.
All right. You got another one?
Yes, I also watched a similarly slapstick, The Monkey.
Oh, you mentioned this to me, yeah.
Oh, I really wanted to see that.
It's the same guy who did Long Legs from last year. I think it was last year.
Yeah.
That both Eric and I...
Early last year, but yeah.
Yeah. Both Eric and I pretty well liked. It is very fun, gory shit. I don't know that the plot of the movie hangs together that great, but fuck, there is fun stuff in it. It's certainly worth a watch.
So it's a horror comedy, right?
It is. It's a horror comedy in the sense that Evil Dead.
So it's a horror with some comedy.
It's a horror that is aware that some of the shit the audience has no other option than to laugh out loud.
Okay.
You know, it's got a couple of really good performances in it. And yeah, I think Evil Dead / Evil Dead 2, it's like right between those two, where Evil Dead 2 is a horror, like a comedy movie that's a horror, and Evil Dead is a horror movie that has some comedy. It's like right between those two. It knows how absolutely fucking ridiculous it is. And it's fun and just gory fucking bullshit.
All right. I look forward to that one. I like that shit.
Oh, and one more last thing. I just read the new Mary Robinette Kowal book, The Martian Contingency. It's the 4th book in her Lady Astronaut series, which I've mentioned before on the show.
You have.
It is very good. Strongly recommend it. Just came out like last week. If you haven't read those books, they're a real relax compared to the world. Like people act sanely. There's drama, but people make the right decisions broadly. It's kind of a fantasy now that I think about it. Yeah.
Do you got anything, Geoff?
Yes, there's a show on Max called Common Side Effects.
Oh, yes, I want to watch this.
It is really, really good. The final episode of the season 1 has yet to come out. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. It is not at all what I expected based on the blurb. It's sort of... So there's this guy who's a mycologist, and he finds this legendary mushroom that can kind of instantly heal people.
Ooh, fun.
There are a pair of DEA agents who are being used as tools by Big Pharma to quash the guy. There are people from Big Pharma that have all their own agendas too. And they're all trying to wrestle with, control, eradicate this magic almost literally magic mushroom.
And that's the same studio or creators or something as Scavenger's Reign. Which,
that's exactly right.
Which we talked about, I think, when Geoff was on the show.
Probably with Geoff,
at some point.
Yeah. They've got a real fungal theme going.
Yeah.
They know what they like.
Hey, if any studio heads are listening to the show, pick up Scavenger's Reign for a second season.
Yeah, please, come on.
Absolutely.
What are you doing?
I feel like that, and again, anyone who hasn't watched Scavenger's Reign, please watch that. It's fantastic. I feel like it stands alone enough that like I feel satisfied with the way the first season ended. So if you're on the fence because you don't want to get left hanging by a one and done, it's complete enough, but there is enough of the world left to explore that another season would be great.
Yes,
which is kind of what happened with Severance, in fact. Oh, another recommendo, Severance.
Yeah, Severance was going to be mine. I'm not caught up with it yet. I'm about halfway through it. I wanted to wait till it was all out to start on it. And liking it. The dude who plays Mr. Milchick is so fucking good. I don't know his name offhand.
Tramel Tillman.
Yeah.
He stands out. I want to watch the whole show about him. He's so damn talented.
He's so it's uncanny because he can sit completely motionless, change absolutely nothing about the expression on his face, but
and
somehow
yet the vibe shifts 180 degrees.
Exactly. He's conveying an emotion of like tranquility and then complete rage in the same way. I don't know how he does it. He is amazing.
If this show is nominated for any Emmys, I really hope he is up there for one, because I just feel like he doesn't carry the show. Everyone's really good, but he kind of stands out among a really great cast.
Yeah, I mean Britt Lower, I think that's her name, who is Helly. She's phenomenal.
Zach Cherry is always great. Spider-Man, do a flip.
Yeah, Zach Cherry's great.
Tramel Tillman is, as much as I like a bunch of people on the show, Tramel Tillman is the discovery. Yeah. I cannot, it's one of those things where you see a guy, and this was evident in fucking episode 1. You see a guy and you're like, wow, I want to watch this guy on a screen for as long as possible.
I just love how he can, in the same scene, be completely menacing and then also you want to believe and trust everything he's saying. It's very
cool.
He was also on a show that I watched called Godfather of Harlem, which has Forrest Whitaker playing Bumpy Johnson. And he was good on that show, and you're like, wow, who's this random guy in one scene an episode for 6 or 8 eps. But man, Severance, he has a canvas to work on.
Yeah,
he sure does.
Yeah.
So anyway, in case you needed one more group of people recommending that show, there it is.
We're gonna be the one that just puts it right over the top,
put you over the edge.
Yes, absolutely.
I also want to do a quick shout out. The Dollop episode on Jim Caviezel from a few weeks ago was fucking hilarious, and I recommend everybody listen to it. If you only listen to one dollop, I mean, there are a lot of good dollops, but Jim Caviezel seems like a fucking nightmare.
I watched that show when it was on, and I've seen it numerous times.
Person of interest, you're speaking of.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the fact that none of this shit got out beyond Jim Caviezel's a little difficult to work with is truly amazing, because the shit that they talked about on that episode is mind-boggling.
Yeah, and their guest was James Adomian, playing Jim Caviezel a lot of time in their off-the-cuff reenactments, and he's so goddamn good. They're so funny together. It's a hilarious episode.
Any James Adomian episode is just a classic.
Yeah, he's another incredibly talented guy.
I love pretty much everything. He and Andy Daly.
Yeah,
they both seem like these wholesome kind of sweet guys, and then the absolute unhinged madness.
There's something in their head. There's a maelstrom of chaos in their brains that doesn't crest the surface until they want it to. It's cool.
Yeah.
All right, we have got to put a pen in the recommendos because we're way over.
All right.
So,
All right, tight 90.
Here
Tight
we
90,
go.
baby. Back to All Tomorrow's Parties.
Yeah, that's the book we're covering.
That is. Okay, so we left it. Chevette and her roommate Tessa are heading up north because Chevette's ex-boyfriend showed up at the house they were living in. Silencio, his two buddies, in quote marks, Playboy and Raton, had a relatively, what would normally be an unremarked upon absolute fucking murder by a highly skilled assassin. Rydell, he is also heading up north from his Lucky Dragon spot in LA
With a
weird
redneck guy.
with a drunk, I would assume alt country star, or hopes to be an alt country star,
a Ryan Adams type.
Just call him a new metal star.
New metal would work too.
Just for Bro J.
Culturally, yes, a new metal star. And Lainey is living in a refrigerator box, pissing into a bottle, and
living a dream.
He's trying to make a thing happen. Well, he's trying to affect a thing that's happening, and that's where we are.
Got that gamer life going.
He really does.
In his chair.
So this was actually a terrible place for us to pause in relation to Lainey, because Chapter 8 is a Lainey chapter. It's called The Hole. And the whole of The Hole is
Courtney
Lainey, Gold Dust Woman. Lainey thinking about how thinking about the hole inside of him as, the hole in cyberspace as a metaphor for the hole inside of him that can never be filled with enough information about Cody Harwood. And why he compulsively seeks out things that can give him meaning, I guess.
I can relate to that.
It's a real thing. I mean, every moment that I don't spend entirely disassociated about something is a screaming emptiness inside me. So I get it.
Yeah.
It's not maybe the most kinetic chapter in the book.
Possibly one of Gibson's most autobiographical chapters.
It really is. It is the entire chapter, which is not terribly long. I don't know, 4 or 5 pages maybe. It's entirely about a hole in oneself as being a metaphor for obsession. The same way that there are, say, like we were talking about, comedians who have a hole inside themselves that they seek to fill with laughter from other people. Mm-hmm. And Lainey seeks to fill it with a just range of information to get a whole picture of something. And
we all have a hole, right?
Yeah.
My hole
at least one
filled with montage clips of Pacey and Joey scenes set to early 2000s soft rock songs.
God, I wish I could go back to those days where that would do me.
I can simply never watch enough of them.
Yeah.
For me, the hole in my heart can only be filled by you.
Oh, wait. That's from a song. That's not reality. I felt really touched for a minute. Now I feel like I need to sing it, but I'm not going to.
Was that Mr. Big? No, Extreme.
One of those.
Yeah.
Both of them, I agreed wholeheartedly that was it when you said the names.
When you said Mr. Big, I was like, yes. And then you said Extreme, and I was like, nope, that is the correct version of that, even though I'm not certain that Mr. Big and Extreme are actually different. I know the songs and the videos were different, but were they actually different?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I can name the one Extreme hit. I can't name a Mr. Big hit.
Let's see.
Oh, I guess there's 2 Extreme hits now. We got better things to talk about.
Stop it. Okay.
Right.
Moving on from the gaping hole in the centers of our beings. Chapter 9. This chapter is called Sweep Second, which is a reference that, what could have been our guest Colin could have provided more context for.
It's a watch reference?
It is a watch reference, yes. It's where you have a second hand that doesn't tick, tick, tick. It just sweeps smoothly. There's no ticks in it. Yeah.
That's right. They actually explain that in the book.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And this is another Conrad chapter. And he has decided to treat the, at least at this point, mute Silencio to some mangonadas.
Lucky kid.
Which, if you've never had a mangonada, people, go out and get a mangonada. Fuck. It's a fucking frozen, ground up fruit and ice and a tahini,
little tahini
covered
spice,
straw.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's such good shit. It's the fruit. It's the fruit version of a milkshake, and it's amazing.
There's several trucks selling them around where we live.
Oh, many
out of their tailgates. Yeah,
yeah, and like the worst mangonada is amazing, and the best mangonada is some of the best stuff you've ever had in your life. Yeah. Yeah, it's truly, truly great. So he's treating Silencio to these. He's asking him about his life, gets no responses, contemplates what this boy must have been through and where and how he exists in the city and life. And notices that Silencio is focusing on Conrad's watch and is just entranced by it. This watch that was purchased in Singapore years and years ago. And the ghost decides basically, this kid has his own path. He loves this watch. Here you go. Have a watch. And takes off after paying for the mangonadas.
Conrad lives in the moment.
Yeah. He is the moment, arguably.
Yeah. The Tao moves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know.
It's pretty healthy if you take out the murder parts.
I deeply, deeply envy. And since the book has come out, I have always deeply envied the way that Conrad is presented. Like,
minus the murder bits.
Sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Minus.
Minus.
Just the idea that you cannot be weighed down by 45 years of baggage and bad decisions and regrets. Like, just live in the moment. Shit.
I think Conrad's haunting by the specter of Lise.
Yeah.
is suggests that he is not perhaps as in the moment as he thinks he is.
Yeah, I think. But even being able to keep the idea of live in the moment in your head as strongly as he does is enviable.
Perhaps you should try a lobotomy.
I mean, I am not saying that hasn't occurred to me.
I took an online course. I'm pretty sure I could pull it off.
Honestly, I could pull it off.
Well, speaking of the dollop, the history of lobotomies in the U.S. Would suggest there's not a lot of training involved.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
It's a real simple move. I could do it right now with the things I have within arm's reach, and have just as good a success rate.
That was another
generations of trained doctors.
Another recent dollop that was a favorite is about the grandfather of the owner of the local Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
One of his sons, I guess brothers or uncle to the owner of the Chiefs, was lobotomized.
Yep.
Or having bad humors.
Yes. No, I think he was schizophrenic is what they were kind of retroactively diagnosing.
Some sort of schizoaffective disorder.
The Hunts. Check them out. Great family. We need more billionaires.
Absolutely.
To practice our lobotomies on.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That made me happy.
I don't know. Then depending on how you do the lobotomies, would they even notice when they go to the guillotine? I kind of want them to notice.
It doesn't really matter. Like, honestly.
I kind of want them to notice, man.
That would be a benefit, but just getting them out of the way is the kind of the main goal.
Yep.
That's true, but I don't know. I can't.
Josh,
there are levels of my base animal instincts that I can't get away from.
Josh, please don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah,
exactly. Getting them lobotomized is a good start.
Okay, fair. Very fair.
Do I have to cut this? Is this actual?
Nope.
We're gonna leave it.
Nope, absolutely not.
I like recommendo again for another podcast, Fun City, which is a Shadowrun podcast, and if you like sci-fi actual plays,
I don't know this one.
They are great. Mike Rugnetta is the GM, which you may recognize from like PBS sort of knowledge stuff. He's like a contemporary of Hank Green. Anyway,
okay.
On their chat episodes, whenever one of them, because they're all various forms of good thinking left people, I think, whenever one of them goes off on a rant that would involve, actionable stuff, they just cut over it with clips, segments of The Girl from Ipanema.
That's a good move. I don't know how, but I wasn't specifically thinking Girl from Ipanema, but I was imagining, as you were saying that line, elevator music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like with a big "we'll be right back" sign if it was visual. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
Duke hates the
track.
Irish.
Back on track, Josh.
Okay. So that's the end of chapter 9. Chapter 10, American Acropolis. Yeah. So Rydell and Buell are delivering the car they're driving to a parking lot in San Francisco, and one of the little asides in the book is the security guards in the booth are watching a nature show with deer wandering around in derelict downtown Detroit.
That's a lot of alliteration. Good job.
Derelict, yeah, Jesus. I don't think I noticed that when I typed it. And that's one of the things that, interestingly, I think Idoru and Altamar's parties do a little bit less of than Virtual Light. Both of Virtual Light does a really specific job of separating the world as it was in 1994. That come out from the world of 1994, right?
Yes.
And that drifted away in Idoru and in this book broadly. He's reducing the amount of future there is in his future book. And this little section of, there are deer wandering around, empty, fucking reforested, covered in, skyscrapers covered in ivy, downtown Detroit. And I think it's an interesting thing that I really clocked in this chapter and then noticed as I was going through the book again, how much the future has reduced. Because if you remember, a huge factor in Virtual Light was J.D. Shapley.
I did notice his absence in this book for sure.
Yeah, he cured AIDS. I mean, then was assassinated.
They're still worried about seropositive blood when they have to clean up.
Yeah, they are.
The Lucky Dragon.
And there are tons and tons of little things in Virtual Light, like on, not every page, but every fifth page that are telegraphing, this is not 1994. This is a nebulous near future.
The future.
And partially it's mitigated a bit by Idoru being almost entirely set in Japan. But this book being set back in California and largely in NoCal, it's really reduced the amount of this is the future, quote marks, stuff that people think about and notice. And I don't know, I a long time ago, I read an article, maybe heard a podcast, where somebody was positing that typically in science fiction trilogies, what happens is an author writes one book, and then they write two paired books that are the sequel to the one book. And I kind of think that, I haven't quite worked out all the math in my head, but I kind of think that works with this trilogy. Thoughts?
Maybe. So I feel like this is similar, like Gibson's trilogy structure. To the way it comes across to me is that it seems like he will typically write two very heavily paired books, and then a book in the middle that spans them thematically with some tangential characters that are present, but usually book 1 and book 3 are more tightly integrated than book 2 is to either of the other two.
Yeah, I think that tracks. Well, that tracks with my thinking.
Yeah.
So he's gonna go. He's gonna leave Buell with the car, because he's been contracted to deliver this car and the keys to the car to the security guards at the desk. He has logged the fucking car in, and he's gonna go get some fucking breakfast, dial up Lainey in Tokyo, and find out how the fuck he's gonna, what this job is and how he's gonna get the money.
Several chapters in this book revolve around Rydell getting some food, and
Rydell's a hungry boy.
It makes me hungry. The beef bowl coming up in the future. I really want a fucking beef bowl.
A fucking ghetto chef beef bowl, man.
Yeah. Tolkien, eat your heart out. This is real food writing.
Yeah. So that's his goal. Buell is dismayed that Barry doesn't just hand the keys to him because he seems to want to take the sports car out in San Francisco, but that's not the fucking deal Barry made. So he's going to do it.
Barry's reliable, which one thing I had trouble understanding is why does he go through jobs so quickly? Is it because he's too moral?
I think that's exactly it. He has too much conscience and empathy.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense because he cannot seem to hold down a job, but yet he's very good at every job he does. He will, however, put other people above the work. So maybe that's the problem.
That's 1,000% it. He's a really good worker, but he also is definitively not a cop, even though he thought he was a cop.
He'd kind of like to be, yeah.
I think he's good at accomplishing tasks, but is not from a corpo perspective a good employee.
Right.
Yeah, he
it's not that he wants to be a cop, he wants to be the idealized version of a cop that doesn't actually exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, he wants to do what is right in any given situation, which puts him at odds with pretty much all management structures.
Yeah. Relatable once again.
Yeah, it really
more
is.
Relatable every day that passes.
I don't know. I honestly wonder. I can't think back with enough clarity. Like, was there a point where I didn't like Barry Rydell as a protagonist in these books? And
not really.
Because obviously I think at a surface level, obviously I should have. Like, having read Virtual Light. Well, obviously the guy really wanted to be a cop. I should have had a distaste for him, but no, man, the dude wants to be fucking Andy Griffith.
Yeah, he wants to help people, and he's been told that's the way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
He wants to protect people, I guess.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And it turns out in Virtual Light, like in the backstory of Virtual Light, that does not mesh with policing.
Yeah.
Like, it meshes with the media concept of policing, but not policing.
Yeah, in the world, unfortunately. Like, in a perfect world, that wouldn't be the case, but...
Yeah.
All right, moving forward.
Okay, we're back to Chevette.
I feel like a cop on this podcast sometimes, I'm not going to lie.
Keep
it moving!
I'm sorry. I'm totally sorry for it.
just real quick. Eric, are you a cop? You have to tell us. If you are.
Legally, you have to tell us.
Oh, shit, guys. I got some bad news.
Recommendo, by the way, do not rely on that. Cops are allowed to lie.
Yes.
What?
Oh, God.
No.
The very fact that you... Yeah, we should say that. We definitely do need to give that warning because I don't know how media poisoned these kids are these days.
Yeah, they're bad.
So, chapter 11, called The Other Guy. We're back to Chevette. Tess is driving. We're going up to NoCal again. Tess is talking about docs. And she talks about this documentary she saw about this place called the Walled City, which we've never heard before. We've never heard about before in this trilogy at all. And we end up, let's see, I'm pulling up the quote. Tessa was telling her about a place called the Walled City, how there'd actually been this place by Hong Kong, but it had been torn down before Hong Kong went back to being part of China. And then these crazy net people had built their version of it, like a big communal website, and they turned it inside out, vanished in there. It wasn't making much sense when Chevette nodded out, but it left a picture in her head. Dreams. And
Tessa is an underrated character in this book.
I like Tessa. I picture her as Naomi Watts in Tank Girl.
Ha!
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
sure.
that's good pull.
Like, I don't know why. And
more
honestly,
Australian, but
yeah.
Is she Australian? She is.
Yeah, Tessa's Australian.
Okay, I was making sure that wasn't just my narrator, but you're right. They mentioned it specifically.
Yeah.
Well, Naomi Watts is Australian.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. I thought she was.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good parallel then.
Yeah, I don't know why well, yeah, this book obviously came out after Tank Girl. So yeah. I really think that feels like that little section feels like me reading Idoru. Like all these people, like there was this walled off insular world. It ended up getting taken over and destroyed, and then people on the net created it, kind of a mirror version of it and inverted it. That's what I thought things were going to be in 1999 when I first read this book.
Yeah.
Oh, I was so wrong. I didn't realize that 9/11 was going to be the thing that turned the net from inside out to outside in.
Yeah, I don't think it's all blame on 9/11, but I think
certainly it was a big nodal point.
Yeah, it was 1,000% a nodal point.
I mean, you don't have to go back that long. Even in like 2012, the hopes we had for the internet and for technology were so much different than they are today.
I don't know, man. My version of the history of the net turns around circa 9/11, where it went from a thing that people were on to a thing that everybody was on because we all needed updates.
Yeah.
And
Well, and there's a parallel, like there was a just as it happened in the physical world with enclosure of public goods and public lands. Like there was an enclosure of the internet, like everything got aggregated and put into walled gardens.
Yeah, approximately 2003 to 2008 was the technological equivalent of the English Enclosures Act of 1684. Is that right? Anybody?
I'm going to go ahead and say yes.
Okay, great. I hate myself. Anyway, so Tessa asked Chevette about Rydell. She basically says, "Oh yeah, didn't you meet your ex-boyfriend up there?"
The question we were all wondering, because when they last left, they were happily riding off into the sunset.
They were. And it turns out that Chevette kind of left Rydell for Carson because it seemed like the thing to do at the moment.
I can see how Rydell would be tough to date. Yeah,
I feel her explanation in this really deeply.
Yeah,
being somebody who's very depressed and subsequently hard to fucking deal with, especially on a daily basis. I'm aware of how difficult it would be to deal with me. Because Rydell was super depressed when, and I think we get further into this later. It turned out that Cops in Trouble wasn't happening for him again, and all he wanted to do was help people. But it turned out to be this big, like, PR thing, and he looked a little fat on camera.
That was weird. They fat shamed him,
which is a true thing.
No, I believe it, but it's...
camera lenses do weird shit to you and your face. And he got real depressed when things were not working out, but also at the same time, nobody was saying, yeah, this isn't going to work out. He was just like, no, they haven't said they aren't going to work with me anymore. So obviously I should rely on that. And because not everybody is as reliable as Barry.
Yeah, in fact, almost no one is.
Yeah. It's kind of a bad time. I felt seen. Hated it.
Chevette like lays it out even more acutely later on when she's thinking about it rather than expressing it to Tessa. But it's like the excitement of Barry Rydell like protecting her in the moment in a crisis was very different from watching him sit around on the couch as his dreams slowly evaporated.
Yeah.
It's a Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves post-Speed situation, clearly.
Yeah. Chapter 12, El Primero. We're at Fontaine. Have we?
It's our first Fontaine chapter.
This is our first Fontaine chapter. And Fontaine, we met in Virtual Light. He's the guy who kind of keeps Skinner and Chevette's thing running. He's an older black guy who, does a lot of the maintenance on the mechanicals and electrical systems on the bridge.
He's one of my favorites. He's my guy.
Hard not to like.
I really love Fontaine. he's just fucking rolling with it, man. He is a dude who wakes up in the back of his storefront, walks out to open it up and sees some weird Mexican kid just staring at the glasses staring through the glass at the watches he'd left on display the night before. Opens the door with gun in hand in pocket and says, "You need to get the fuck out of here." And Silencio just kind of stares. So Fontaine, being a generally empathetic person, says, "Okay, come in, whatever."
He's a good dude.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, that's the perfect encapsulation. He's like, "I'm going to fuck you up if you don't move." And then the kid, like, has a wound. It's a wounded bird.
Yeah, it's a wounded animal. Yeah.
All right, come on, get some breakfast.
Yeah. So he welcomes the kid in, partially because he sees the watch on the kid's wrist, which the kid got from the ghost. And Fontaine really wants this fucking watch. It seems very interesting. And it turns out it's a Jaeger Le Couture. And I don't know if that's in this chapter or a next one, but it's a military watch issued by the British in Singapore. It's a really good field watch. It's a very good tool watch is the terminology. Like, it'll work. It's not a fancy fucking diamonds and gold Rolex or something. It's a good piece of equipment with a feel of history to it. And that's his thing. Because Fontaine is interested in keeping aspects of the old world running, which I think metaphorically is him keeping society running, like people's relations with each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up like Fontaine really, he really wants his watch and, kind of examines it and hands Silencio basically an iPad and says, "Here, check out the watches on this thing," and pulls up eBay, which is, that's an interesting bit of future casting from Gibson in 1999, because eBay was a thing in 1999, but it wasn't a thing in 1999.
It was pretty big in 1999.
It was with people who were online, but that was about it. Like, I remember
Beanie Baby craze hit.
Beanie
that
Babies
was like 2000, 2001.
Yeah, something like that.
That was the thing that rocketed like that.
Yeah,
Beanie Babies like bumped their annual revenue up by like 1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I'm pretty sure it was, God, it might have been 2000. It was either 99 or 2000 that I ordered new kick panels for my 1968 Barracuda off of eBay because I needed a set of kick panels that I cut speaker holes into, obviously. And that was the point where I had been aware of it beforehand, but it was like, oh, this is very convenient. Where else? Like, I don't have to leave my house to get these shipped to me.
It's like that website that does that too, but only with books, and that's all it will ever sell is books.
Yeah, all it's ever going to sell is brand new books.
So convenient when you want a book.
Yeah,
well, that was never their long-term plan. That was just
no, I know.
Yeah, that was the way into a market, not the market.
Yeah. All right, we gotta go faster if we're ever gonna finish this in time.
Okay, secondhand daylight scooter. He goes back to Lainey. We get a little rundown of the end of Edoru, where Rez and Ray were going to set up shop on the island, and it kind of didn't work for some reason. Ray disappeared, like she's vanished from the world. Rez has gone mad. He's
the real victim here.
States.
Sorry, the real victim here is those Russians.
It really is. Those guys just wanted to make a bespoke methamphetamine lab.
And they really lost out. And I feel bad for those guys because they deserved it.
You know what, though? They've got hustle. I feel like they can make things happen.
They're going to land on it work. Yeah.
They have a real can-do attitude.
They do. So we get Lainey. Lainey ends up eavesdropping on a video call between Harwood, who is not yet revealed as Harwood, and an investigator who is looking at the remains of Raton and Playboy, Silencio's friends. And Lainey explains to Scooter that Harwood owns the world.
And is it... I got a little lost in some of the Lainey chapters, I'm not going to lie.
They're very stream of consciousness.
Yeah. Is this just his abilities that is allowing him to eavesdrop on these conversations, or is he being assisted by some walled city hacker types?
Yeah, the walled city folks put a tap on the security feed from Harwood's office.
That's what I thought.
That's not yet. That happens like halfway through the book. I think he is being assisted at this point, where he's somehow ended up on some cell node.
Okay.
That connects to it, but later it becomes a lot more explicit, and there's some questions about like, how did these guys get this access?
Yeah.
Because then it's a full video call.
Right.
And yeah, Lainey explains to Scooter that Harwood owns the world and collects people, but inferentially, he determines that Conrad might not have been happy to have been collected by Harwood, and that everything is coming together soon. This is our real first hint at we got a nodal point coming up, and Lainey is trying to. I don't know. It's an interesting question about whether Lainey thinks he's trying to interfere with the nodal point coming up or just contribute to it. But then that's a deontology thing of, is it fate if you run towards your fate? Then we move on. We're going to Rydell. He hits a fucking breakfast spot in an abandoned bank, or in a former bank in San Francisco. He gives Lainey a call. He orders some eggs and then gives Lainey a call in the bathroom on his GPS goggles. And Lainey says, okay, I'm going to put you on a retainer for as long as necessary. And what is necessary? Rydell says. And Lainey says, I'm asking you to, basically the idea is I want you to attract this guy who doesn't exist. Because he's somehow involved and I can't figure out how. And I know that you're probably involved, and the bridge and this guy, and I'm not sure.
Rydell's like, all right, whatever, as long as the check cashes.
Yeah, pretty much. And he goes back to his seat, and fuck, Buell's back. But this time, he brought one of our favorite returning characters, Mary Alice from Midori.
Oh, yeah, we miss her.
She's so great.
I even though there's every reason to dislike Mary Alice, I have a very strong fondness for her.
She's fun.
She's just
and very, very sad character too. Really,
she's just doing her fucking best, man. Unfortunately, she's attracted to the kind of guy that Gibson would refer to as shit-heel boyfriends, shit-heel ex-boyfriends.
Yeah, a young Jennifer Coolidge from The White Lotus.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
Basically how I've pictured her. Yeah, maybe a little bigger hair, but
yeah. So, Rydell's whole purpose is to stay alive long enough to ask Conrad a question. What's the question? Lainey doesn't fucking know. He'll figure it out before we get to that point. So that seems like a great way to run out the rest of a sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
And then Chevette gets back to the bridge. This is chapter 15. There are tank traps, as there were originally. She used to bike between them. And we are introduced to Boomzilla, who is one of my favorite characters in the book.
Very small role, but very memorable.
Yeah, he is extremely identifiable to people who live in, I don't know, maybe it's just people who live in multiracial or majority-minority areas, because I have met and interacted with a number of Boomzillas in my lifetime. He is a kid who is hanging out at a fucking convenience store because it's the place where things are happening.
I think I've bought alcohol for some underage Boomzillas a couple times.
You absolutely have. Hypnotique, I believe, was what was specifically requested in my memory.
Classy.
Yes. Well, look, they had places to be that night.
Yeah.
And he's going to come back later. He's fun. Anyway, Chevette is very distressed at the presence of a lucky dragon at the entrance to the bridge, because that seems antithetical to the entire concept of the bridge, which is, as established in Virtual Light, an intentional anarchist community. And outside corporate interests would seemingly not be smiled upon, but Lucky Dragon has plopped one down right at the beginning of the bridge.
The Lucky Dollar General. I just can't not think of them together. It's one more. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to be prescient and see that stores would. I mean, it was probably more comparing it to Walmart at the time, but I feel like Dollar General is even more apropos because Walmart is more. It's more useful and sells better products, frankly.
Chunked down front and center across the entrance to the bridge's 2 levels, Lucky Dragon and the shudder of video up the trademark tower of screens. Fucking hell, said Tessa. How interstitial is that? Chevette stopped, stunned. How could they do that? It's what they do, Tessa said. Prime location. But it's like Nissan County or something. And if you recall from Virtual Light, Nissan County is the thing that replaced either Disneyland or Knott's Berry Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Gated attraction. The community is a tourist draw, right? Lots of people won't go where there's no police. Autonomous zones are their own draw, Tessa said. This one's been here long enough to become the city's #1 postcard. God awful, Chevette said. It ruins it. Who do you think Lucky Dragon Corp is paying rent to? Tessa said, swinging the platform around for a pan across the store. Yeah, we're going to get further into that later in the book when Harwood talks about bohemias and autonomous zones as the place.
I'm thinking of. Sorry, go ahead and finish.
No, you go.
Well, I'm just thinking of Venusville from Total Recall.
Yeah, it's
They're
the
tourist traps, but also places where people are living generally in poverty.
Yeah, it's the place where future culture emerges, from outside the mainstream and then eventually becomes co-opted into the mainstream.
Right. And it's the reason like art neighborhoods and cities eventually become gentrified.
Always.
And unlivable for the artists, and they always have to move to the next poor area. It's definitely happened here. The Crossroads is now owned by the Koch brothers, and it used to be where all the cheap housing was for artists.
Cheap housing, fucking ancient warehouses for storing your goddamn antique store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a whole thing, and it's I don't know that I don't think it counts as prescient on Gibson's part because it was already well into, it was already a thing by this point.
More commentary than prediction,
but it seems prescient based on just how much is spread, because it went from, in the 1990s, it was like the Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco was being developed, and the East Village in New York. But nowadays it's really picked up steam and momentum and is, I expect fucking North Topeka within the next 5 years will be flooded with fucking lofts, because that's where a couple of places decided to have a First Fridays event 10 years ago.
I'd rather die than move to North Topeka.
Oh, I agree.
Well, what's pleasant is in Memphis, we're resisting those trends.
That's good. That's
good
awesome
for you, man.
Yeah.
Like
they throw up some gentrifier barns in the middle of a area, and then turns out people can't handle some harmless little gunshots going pop pop in the middle of the night.
Cowards.
Whoa.
Yep.
Yeah, we've known each other too long.
All right. Keep going.
Moving on. Okay, so they give Boomzilla a couple of bucks to keep an eye on the van, and then they decide to head into the village, or head into the bridge, and go to a breakfast place, and
called Dirty as God. I love that.
Dirty
name.
as God. Yeah, that was highlighted in my notes, and. Tessa explains to Chevette that Chevette is a mismatch for, I guess, to some degree, a mismatch for reality, in that Chevette sees herself as, just some trash fucking courier who's waiting for her next run. And Tessa says specifically, this is a quote I have highlighted, which is, I'm just going to read it. You've got a body that makes boys chew carpet. Which I think is such an interesting phrase. Like, I immediately understand what it means. That Chevette is super fucking attractive, even if she doesn't regard herself as, tremendously special or interesting.
Isn't it a little tropey though, with the girl who doesn't know how pretty she is?
Yeah,
the Joey Potter of it all. I can't stop.
Yeah.
At the same point, from what we know of her backstory prior to Virtual Light, she, escaped from some god awful domestic abuse situation. And predation situation somewhere north of San Francisco.
Yeah.
And grew into this, I guess, because I think at some point it's mentioned that she ended up on the bridge at like 15 or 16 or something.
I don't know. This is just one of the things I didn't sit well with me. I'm just talking about how hot Chevette was, when we could all imply that from the way people are treated, or to explicitly say it, didn't care for it. It just seemed a little tropey, but
it's less creepy coming out of the mouth of a friend, I think, than like some guy telling her that he's the only one who knows how special she is.
Yeah, I can totally see where you're coming from, Eric. It's important to remember that it's her friend Tessa who is saying this, and the point of Tessa saying this is that Tessa wants her to be the center of the documentary that Tessa is making.
Yeah,
like
it's a good reason for her to. I mean, it's a good sales pitch she's going on.
Yeah, Tessa thinks that Chevette should embrace the fact that you're really hot and you'd be great. I can show how you move between this.
Gotta get this girl in OnlyFans.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also think it's kind of wild that Chevette is the one person in the entire, like, that third of California who doesn't want to be in a movie.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, she finds the Hollywood people annoying and fake. So yeah, we're making progress. You know, Chevette is not saying so, but Tessa thinks, she's going to be the center of this. She's going to be the center of this fucking movie that I'm, doing these drone shots for.
It'll be dollar signs in her eyes.
Yeah. Well, not just dollar signs, but faculty awards signs. Yeah. So, moving on. We got some more Lainey. He's contemplating the hole in the center of himself and in the center of the data flow. And it turns out that sleep is no longer an option. So he has the suit. Get him some more cola.
The suit is a cool character, which we don't really need to get into, but the way he's described is very interesting.
I am not going to skip past the chapter that is basically entirely about the suit. So fucking intriguing.
Yeah, very intriguing.
And we get a little more background. We get a little more fill in a couple of more chapters about how Fontaine gets Silencio a haircut and a shower, some clothes.
We also learn about Fontaine's troubled love
marital
life.
Situation. Yeah.
Yeah. Difficult situation he's gotten himself into.
Fontaine is a bit of a bigamist.
Just a bit.
Yeah. Which is not illegal on the bridge.
And not a non-consensual or...
they know about each other.
They're not super stoked about it, but they're consenting to it.
Yeah. He's like, he's a guy who I feel like Fontaine has done a lot of taking it as it comes, and that's gotten him into trouble more than a few times, including maritally.
Yeah.
Barry makes a call to this attorney to get some money, and this attorney is in Singapore. I want to say Hong Kong. And there's a pretty funny bit in this about how Barry logs onto this attorney's website and has to go through this fucking long drag of this animated walk down a hallway with building music and fucking, marble pillars and stuff like that just to log into this goddamn guy's site.
That's what it made me think, like, that's how we imagined the Shadowrun Matrix was like, and how obnoxious that would actually be for just conducting day-to-day business.
Yeah, it is very much the iPhone / Facebookification of the internet, where even though that shit has gotten so much worse from where it was in, 2005, like roughly 2005, there were a lot of fucking animated GIFs just dragging.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You go to a local car dealership and it's like embedded MIDI clips and
yes, it really made, the way it's described really made me think of Disclosure, I think was the movie that it was initially a book by Michael Crichton.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A huge Demi Moore,
Michael Douglas and Demi Moore.
Yeah. And a huge plot point of the movie, which was 95, 96, revolves around Michael Douglas in VR goggles, standing in a room with some gloves, and then it cuts to CGI, him manipulating file boxes in like a giant GIF environment. It's terrible looking.
Sounds like we're going to have to cover that one.
Yeah. It's a bad fucking movie.
Yeah, that's
it's
we're covering next week.
Less consequential than The Net.
Yes. Yeah, way less. I think the net is a much higher priority than that.
All right. Sandy Bullock making her second appearance being mentioned on the show.
And here, I'm just going to go ahead and drop a third. Judge Dredd.
She's in Judge Dredd?
Yes.
Wow. I've never seen the original Judge Dredd.
Oh my God. Why aren't we doing that next week?
We're going to do it.
All right. Tight 90.
Tight 90.
Yes, God damn it.
Okay. So he ends up, Barry goes to the Lucky Dragon at the head of the bridge to get a cred stick. And they're going to be holding a package for him as well. Chevette, after breakfast, abandons Tessa, goes wandering the bridge, considering the concept of the bridge and grieving Skinner.
Yeah, Skinner is her old mentor / kind of guardian.
Yeah,
And, who is a cool dude in Virtual Light.
Yeah, and as as shouldn't come as a surprise to just about anybody, this is one of my favorite sections of the book because, boy, I'm drawn to fucking content about grief. Boy, I wish I could afford some more fucking therapy. Anyway, she almost goes up to Skinner's room, goes up to the platform that accesses the funicular. But decides against it. Notices that seemingly she assumes somebody's up there, but seemingly nobody's used the funicular for a while.
I'm sure it won't come back and will never matter again, and this could be forgotten.
Absolutely not. Then we go to Boomzilla. Boomzilla's inner monologue is absolutely fun shit.
Yeah, his inner monologue is great.
He is guarding a truck for them bitches. And I am 1,000% sure that Boomzilla does not consider bitches to be a derogatory term. It's just what you call single ladies or something.
Yeah, he was raised on
RoboCop.
RoboCop, yeah.
Yes.
Bitches
leave.
Your van with me, and it'll be safe.
And then a movie star looking white guy approaches and shows him a picture and asks if Boom has seen this biker looking bitch. and Boomzilla's like, yeah, this guy doesn't even know it's their fucking van. He's not into it. Keep stepping, motherfucker. And then the chapter ends. So, moving on, Rydell talks to Lainey. We get a vague rundown of the end of Virtual Light and kind of how things happened, including his breakup from Chevette, where he was sitting on the couch all day, depressed, and she left him for somebody who seemed like shit might be going for. He ends up going to the Lucky Dragon, and it's a newer bottle than his home store was. Wow. Oh yeah. This is a part where we get a little kind of short story about graffiti on the Lucky Dragons and the smart paint, and that's on them.
I think
we've been Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that little segment where he watches the tag escape the corporate stranglehold for a long time, but ultimately get overwhelmed and eaten by superior resources is really pretty emblematic of where Gibson's head is in this book.
Yeah, it's very much the Bohemia / autonomous zone thing.
Yeah.
And have we been introduced to the, construction project happening outside the Lucky Dragon at this point?
No. Oh, actually, that might have been mentioned in... No, I think that's in...
I thought it was Boomzilla's chapter.
Yeah, I think it's in Boomzilla's next chapter.
Okay.
We'll just cover it now. They're installing some new kiosk in the Lucky Dragon. He doesn't know what the fuck it is. It's right by the ATMs. Whatever. Not important. Definitely not a part of the plot.
Definitely not a nodal point.
Yeah. So Barry gets his credit chip filled up, and he picks up this package from somebody, because Lucky Dragons are everything. They're a UPS store. They're a fucking 7-Eleven. They're a fucking Walmart. And
Western Union, apparently.
Yeah. And it's a heavy package, and it's from Paragon Asia Dataflow. And then fucking Buell shows up.
Buell keeps showing up.
I hate Buell's guts, but man, I've known Buell's.
I think the reason the narrator of my audiobook didn't do Rydell with a Southern accent is because he only has one, and he used it on Buell, and it is over the top, borderline offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, so Buell arrives with a giant fucking guy who is apparently a session guitar player, and sees that the security guard is giving Barry shit because Barry is still wearing his hot pink Lucky Dragon fanny pack.
Oh, right, he was accusing him of stolen valor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're right. And Buell starts poking him. And it turns into a whole fucking thing. And they all end up running away. It's fun.
Yeah. Buell saves the day.
Buell saves the day by punching a random security guard in the mouth. Probably poorly. Based on the Buells I've known, it was not a good punch. It was just a surprise.
Right. Enough to get away.
Yeah. So they take off.
Right. Rydell is a little bit I think gains a little bit of respect for Buell at the force of the blow.
Yeah.
That'll all go away soon, but for the moment.
Yeah, respect for Buell is always momentary.
Always short-lived.
Yeah. So, we find out some more. We go to another chapter about Fontaine when one of his wives, not his wife, but one of his wives shows up with a cart of creepy Japanese dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are
mainly just the setup for a sight gag later, right?
Sort of, and also weirdly haunting and Cronenbergian.
Yeah.
There are these. It's just an excuse for William Gibson to spin on how people look to replicate an experience. It's a brand called Another One, and they make photorealistic versions of actual children, like infants, and they're primarily were given to grandparents who were, I don't know, I guess distant from the grandchildren, and they are deeply creepy, and they make noises when you poke them, and they're all modeled after a real person, and it is not like it's a very Cronenberg body horror section to read.
There's a TV show called Servant on Apple TV that involves a doll like that. The first season is pretty good, and then it goes downhill really fast. But
I've not seen that. Was that the M. Night Shyamalan?
It's a Shyamalan joint. Yeah. I mean, he's a producer. Really liked the first season, and the second season just was not good. But anyway.
Yeah. The Shyamalan twist is that it's a bad show.
Less of a twist.
They just clearly they just had enough. They thought, well, we can keep this going, and they couldn't keep it going. They should have ended. Some things need to end.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's off topic.
So yeah, we're introduced to Clarissa and these creepy fucking dolls. And it turns out that Silencio has found Christie's, the auction house, and he's flipping through watches like a crazy person.
He's now addicted to eBay.
Yeah, he is addicted to
he's a
online
dropshipper,
auction
basically.
sites. Yeah. And Fontaine says, here, you can do this faster, and hooks him up to some ancient military iPhones. So he doesn't even have to look at a thing.
Yeah. That's not going to be a problem for the kid.
Yeah. So we go to the ghost. He's in Russian Hill, which is the name of the chapter, and a neighborhood in San Francisco. He is surgically sharpening the fucking knife he used on Ramon and Playboy, and gets a phone call from Cody Harwood about Ramon and Playboy. And he splits the difference. He splits hairs about whether or not these guys died or whether or not, he killed them.
Yeah, sometimes
they just happen to be in the way of his knife.
Yeah, it happens. I'm stabbing. You walk into my stabbing. That's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a little bit of backstory dealt out about how Harwood has hired him a couple of times years before, but many years before. And this was the section that makes me wonder, is he the guy who killed the courier in Virtual Light?
Yeah. Good question.
And I don't think there's an answer to it.
Yeah. I don't think that one is as key, like whether it was him or not.
Yeah, it doesn't especially matter, but given the way that this is tying back to Virtual Light, it makes me think that is a possibility. And then he goes ahead and lays down and goes back to sleep after the phone call's done, because he thinks Harwood has gotten interesting in the years. So
he's gotten mature.
Yeah. So Barry's in a bar with Buell and Randy, the session guitar player, who's a big guy. They're in a bridge bar. And Barry tries to scare him off about how he might end up getting sued by the security guard from the Lucky Dragon. And then he ends up running off to the bathroom in this bar to open the package he got with that fancy ceramic switchblade, which is never going to come back. And it turns out it's a thermos.
Oh, God, we are only just now to this point.
A thermos that you'll recognize from Yodoru.
Yes, I wasn't sure if Eric had more sense there.
No, sorry. I was just lamenting that we're only just now to the Yodoru. We've got to move
it's the thermos that projected Ray from Edoru. It's got a bunch of little ports and a sticker that says Famous Aspect on it. And he's like, what the fuck is this thing? Goes back to the bar, and Mary Alice is there. Again, yay. We love Mary Alice. And Buell starts singing. He's got a gig tonight. They're recording a fucking bit on the bridge because it's a big thing. It's like Folsom Prison.
And he's actually not half bad.
Yeah, he's not a bad singer.
I'm telling you, he's a Ryan Adams type. Abusive, drunk, but also talented, unfortunately.
Hey, I'm going to admit something right now. I literally never remember correctly which is Bryan Adams and which is Ryan Adams. Like it is 100% flipped in my brain.
Brian is from Canada.
Correct. And the
Ryan
other one is married to was married to Mandy Moore. Is that right?
Maybe,
no, he's the guy that does Dilbert.
No, that's a different guy.
Yeah.
It's a different Adams. Probably worse than both of them.
A piece of shit, worse than both of them put together.
Yeah, probably.
Ryan Adams is pretty bad though. He did some bad things.
Yes, I remember.
And Bryan Adams put out some bad music.
I remember hearing bad things about one of the Adamses.
One's bad music, the other bad person. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah. I just can't keep whether their names begin with Brian or Ryan. So
they both begin with Ryan.
Oh, there's a simple mnemonic. Bryan Adams puts out bad music, and Ryan Adams is a really bad guy.
Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind. The next chapter is The Suit. It's from Lainey's point of view, and he's talking about the guy who is helping him out. It is a guy known as The Suit. And it is it's one of the things that I always think of when I'm reading this book about how another of these houseless individuals who are living in the Tokyo subways keeps an absolutely spotless physical appearance. He was apparently some sort of CEO, enough that he had a one of those bespoke ghost-written autobiographies.
Hey, real quick, while we're admitting things that we've gone our lives not understanding, I don't know what bespoke means. I'm just going to say it.
Custom made.
Okay.
Not off the rack. It was put together from individual bolts of cloth by a tailor who measured you specifically.
Yeah,
okay.
It's not even you pulled the suit off a rack and altered it. It is a tailor measured you, pulled raw material, and cut it for you.
Okay, I could have done that offline, but I feel like we were being honest about what we didn't understand.
Yeah, that's fair.
I salute your honesty.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
I mean,
I am a martyr.
Honestly, that's truly brave.
There's a simple mnemonic, which is bespoke. is what Bryan Adams wears when he's making bad music.
Okay.
Never forget it again.
The suit is evidently a former salaryman. The suit wears a suit. The one suit, always. It is black, this suit, and was once a very good suit indeed. And it is evident from its condition that the suit, in whichever carton he dwells, has a steam iron, lint rollers, surely a needle and thread, and the skill to use them. It is unthinkable, for instance, that this suit's buttons would be anything less than firmly and symmetrically attached, or that the suit's white shirt, luminous in the halogen of the master model maker's carton, would be anything less than perfectly white. But it is also obvious that the suit has seen better days. And it goes on. The suit's, for instance, that the suit's shirt is white because he paints it daily, Lainey surmises, though he doesn't need to know, with a white product intended for the renovation of athletic shoes. The heavy black frames of his glasses are held together with worryingly precise ligatures of black electrical tape cut to narrow custom widths with one of the old man's X-Acto knives and a miniature steel T-square, and then applied with lapidary skill.
Also, he doesn't bathe.
He very distinctly doesn't bathe and gives off an animal stink.
Yeah.
The high, thin reek of madness and despair.
Yeah.
Yikes.
The suit is a haunting figure in late stage capitalism.
Yeah, really. No shit.
And like it doesn't come back for chapters and chapters, like another 20 chapters after this. But
he's the best alternative to send out on an errand. You gotta admit that.
Lainey recognizes that the suit is more presentable than Lainey is.
Yeah.
The thing that haunts me about the suit is the suit does not wear socks. The suit paints an asphalt-like substance on his ankles because he doesn't have socks, but he can't show bare ankles.
Yeah.
And that is that is haunting to me. I don't know why, what specific triggers that pulls, but fuck, poor dude. The suit has been left out. He failed in some way in the Zaibatsu, and as soon as he was done being of value, he's out and trying to keep up pretenses.
He got to keep the suit, though.
Yeah, he got to keep the fine suit, and he keeps it in good repair. Woof. And this is also a chapter where it becomes very clear that Lainey has lost it. He is perceiving unnamed realities in the data flow. He thinks he is existing in places that do not exist and times that do not exist. It's also where he brings up the death of history, or the end of history, which I mentioned last episode, and I'm not going to go into further. And he also has the really important notional line to Gibson's work that the concept of future is inherently plural. There is no single future for you or me or anybody. It's always an implied futures, right? There's no fate. There's no fate but what we make.
That's an original thought.
Yeah. Definitely had nothing to do with Terminator. Except for the fact that fucking Terminator 2, it was the exact same fate just a few years later. And then Terminator 3 was the same
Terminator
fate again,
loves to say that and then make a movie that completely contradicts it.
Moving on to Bad Sector. Chevette and Tessa are eating some chicken sandwiches. And we get a lot of sort of the ecology of the bridge. And they're borrowing a little screwdriver from the owner of this shop called Bad Sector to repair one of Tessa's drones. And Tessa
for a tech shop, by the way.
It really is. One thing you can always rely on Gibson for is great fucking names for places.
Yeah.
Like, Bad Sector, fucking cognitive dissidence. It's absolutely sick.
Dirty is God.
Dirty as God, yeah. And while Chevette's returning the screwdriver, she asks the guy who's working behind the counter, why all these computers that he has on display are beige? Like, what's this beige color? The computer, like, why were they that way?
That's called nicotine staining.
Well, it's nicotine and also formaldehyde off-gassing.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a really great section. I want to read it, but I'm not going to.
No, please don't. We don't have time.
We do not have time. And then goes on. This is chapter 26. Go check it out, people. It's all
Just
about
check out the whole book.
It's all about our current existence and the future. And then this tech goes on to explain like why people want these computers, because we're always just patching code that was made 40, 50 years ago. You know, people like, it seems like things are new, but really we're just patches on patches on patches. So
that's so true. I've heard so many programmers talk about how their job is just cutting and pasting shit from Google.
Yeah.
Well, even beyond that, like the backbone of the entire financial sector is still written in a programming language that was obsolete 40 years ago.
40 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
sure, it's not a problem. I'm sure it'll be fine.
No, it's going to be fucking great. Like the interesting thing about this is that Gibson doesn't present this as a novel insight or something to solve the problems. The guy behind the counter says, or Chevette says basically like, oh, so, you know, by going back to these old computers and stuff, they can like solve the problems and figure out what the issues are. And the guy behind the counter is like, I don't know. It seems like they kind of think that, but they really don't. I mean, It's just kind of looking back at history, and I don't know, man. They all really know that this isn't the answer, but that's where we're at, and that's Gibson's view of society.
I think that is also current tech's view of artificial intelligence. They all really know that it's not gonna do anything notable.
Wait, what? I made a new logo for our podcast where we're both like Studio Ghibli illustrations.
I can't wait for them to get sued. I hope that happens.
I've got some bad news, by the way.
I want Miyazaki to cut off Sam Altman's head with an axe or a hacksaw.
What's the bad news, Geoff?
The bad news is that the viral post about the lawsuit that was going around about Studio Ghibli was in fact AI generated. And false.
There is
our world.
No good news.
Layers upon layers of deception and falseness.
It is.
I hate it.
I like it. That was a deception. I don't actually like it. All right, let's.
So Barry goes to a bed and breakfast. He plugs in the fucking
B&B.
He plugs in the thermos. And a little tiny Japanese lady wearing his clothes pops out in hologram form.
Just a little aside, but I love how they did that with Roy Toa. What the fucking Idoro?
Toei.
How she comes out naked for a second and then like assesses her situation and then picks the perfectly fitting version of whatever the person nearest her is wearing. It's cool.
Yeah, I like that as a little quirk too. Like she doesn't like the system doesn't scan the surroundings. Like she comes out and looks around.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
Gives her a little more reality.
And it's very important to get into this B&B that Lainey has not accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. Because the owner finds those people fucking annoying.
The bridge rules.
Yeah, so it really does. It's kind of an ideal community. So we head back to Tessa and Chevette, and they go and park the van down at the foot of Folsom Street. Looks like a storm's coming in, whatever. But they're going to come back this evening because they heard there was going to be a show at a bar, which is definitely not something we're aware of previously. And Boomzilla mentioned that somebody was looking for him.
Good old Boomzilla.
Yeah, but he gets his $50.
Shit money.
Yeah, he gets a little shit money. Oh yeah, Barry ends up going to Bad Sector because he needs a couple of cables. And Barry gets really on edge in crowds, which has been mentioned in the books before.
Not good for a cop, I might add.
It's not ideal. But he gets both the cables and a web address that he's supposed to visit. And we meet Klaus and the Rooster, who are important characters for the rest of the book, even if they're hardly characters. Klaus and the Rooster are effectively the Republic of Desire guys who he met in Virtual Light, the hacker collective. And nowadays, since Idoru, they are walled city motherfuckers.
Yep.
They tell him
hackers end up in walled city eventually.
Yeah. They tell him he needs to keep the projector with him at all times. And they also mention they're a little worried about Lainey's health, which is understandable if you have any knowledge of Lainey as a person.
Yeah.
So after this, he's going to go to Ghetto Chef Beef Bowl and get some dinner, which sounds amazing.
It takes him a while to get that beef bowl. And he brings it up a lot.
I was drooling every second.
It's his main motivation for like the next couple of chapters, I feel like, or at least several hours in the book. He's got to get that beef bowl, and he keeps getting distracted. And
once again, one of the most relatable characters.
Yeah, truly.
Honestly, not just that, but also a secret bit of Gibson being way too fucking smart. Like, look, this guy's just trying to earn a living and get some fucking food. He just wants some eggs, or after the eggs, a goddamn beef bowl.
Right.
He doesn't want to be dealing with this drunk country musician or buying weird cables from some, huge Samoan guy. He just wants a fucking beef bowl.
I also like there's like a little note of, it makes Rydell an actual rounded character when he loses it with the
clerk. Yeah.
And he he grabs his ear and shoves a screwdriver up his nose.
So just give me the fucking cable, you dick.
Yeah, he's like, I'm tired of eating shit because of people grinning at me because they know things I don't.
Yeah,
I like it. Makes him less of a sad sack.
Yeah. We stan Rydell here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even though by all rights we shouldn't. I mean, he's a guy who wanted to be a cop.
And this is an objectively dick move. Like,
he's way overreacting.
Yeah,
because he gets nervous in crowds, and he had to be in crowds,
and he's hungry.
Yeah,
he's hangry.
This is a new Snickers ad.
not like yourself.
So,
Barry, you really act like a cop when you get hungry.
Yeah. So he goes and gets his fucking beef bowl. And we go back to Fontaine, and
then he has to hold on. He has to carry it up a ladder
with one hand.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that struck out to me because how difficult that would be.
If you have done a lot of ladder work, as I know at least Eric and I have, you realize how difficult it would be to carry something called a Ghetto Chef beef bowl up a ladder.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah. So Fontaine tries to sell the horrible fucking dolls over the phone to somebody who he knows was once on house arrest for the federal crime of counterfeiting Barbies, which is such a fucking 2025 crime.
No kidding.
Just Jesus Christ. And he doesn't think he's going to sell them, but this guy's a fucking weirdo, and he's got the lock on all the doll market. And we find out some disturbing things about the value of the dolls. But he also thinks about Fontaine, while he's on this call, thinks about watches, knives, and the hostile universe that is constantly assaulting everything humans make.
And Fontaine is a representative of the old way of life, I guess, as opposed to the future.
Yeah, Fontaine do be thinking.
He deep.
He deep.
Yeah, he checks on the kid, finds out that somehow Silencio has gotten into sealed court records of safe deposit box contents.
Little otaku motherfucker.
Yeah, he's not sure how or why, but that's where he is, and kind of backs him out of it, and then we move on. Conrad is having dreams about going to hell with the woman he hallucinated earlier. And he gets a phone call from Harwood. And Harwood at this point is seemingly very aware of Lainey's concept of nodal points. Things are changing soon, and Harwood can feel it. And Conrad basically says, yeah, your problem is you're addicted to complexity, and you shouldn't be. And Harwood says, well, the thing is, you're part of this complexity. So where are we? And that's that. Good times.
The guy who lives in the future versus the guy who lives completely in the moment. It's a interesting standoff.
It really is. So Chevette and Tessa head back to the bridge. They go to see Buell and his lower companions play. They're playing
also a great name for
it band. Really is. Yeah, fucking Gibson is so good at naming shit. It makes me angry. Like, God damn it. I should have been able to come up with cognitive dissonance on my own. Like, it's there. Anyway, so Chevette explains to Tessa, like, kind of how society on the bridge runs and basically how and why people follow social rules in an anarchist collective. Like, people don't do things that will piss off their neighbors because nobody likes having pissed off neighbors.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
It's the real boiled down version of it. And there's a concept of shaming, even if there isn't technically legal punishment.
Yeah. And it's important to recognize that these places exist in the world we live in. This isn't like a fantasy that William Gibson has made up whole cloth.
Yeah.
But Chevette also explains that the bridge has changed, and that there are now businesses being run like businesses where, somebody in Taiwan hires a kid to live in a store that they have, a storefront they have on the bridge. And it's not Fontaine who lives in his shop and sells watches. It's Walmart hiring Steve from down the block to, retain possession, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. It's franchising, basically.
Yeah. And Chevette recognizes a lot of aspects of the bridge, but also definitely finds it's changed in the several years since she's been back. We also get a really fun little bit about how her ex-boyfriend, not Rydell, whose name I can't recall right now, Carson. Listened to Serg Gainsbourg, which is perfect. The description is, quote, creepy, like the guy was being slowly jerked off while he sang. Which I'm gonna admit it. I enjoy some Sir Gainsbourg songs, but yeah, that is the exact. That is exactly what it sounds like. Just this weird fucking French crooner who sounds like he's being slowly jerked off.
I mean, that's why you like it.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I was such a big fan of Companion.
It's the perfect musical accompaniment to the movies you kind of like to watch.
Yeah, 1,000%.
And to a slow hand job.
Mm-hmm.
Hundreds of beavers, slow hand job.
You can get all three at the same time. You're really living the dream.
Oh, yeah. I feel compelled to confess that all of that Josh and I were improving about the description of that movie is a lie. It's just a video depiction of a slow hand job.
Yeah, it really was. So then Chevette meets Mary Alice because everybody needs to meet Mary Alice.
Mary Alice, who is just completely sure that they are talent scouts.
Yeah, she's 100% sure that they are A&R execs from a record company. And
give him the
Buell's-
Lemmy test.
Yeah.
It's the only way to know for sure.
It's who would win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God?
Trick question.
Lemmy
God.
is God.
We
should
seen
watch
Airheads.
Airheads
You'll get
for
that
the
reference.
show.
We should. Airheads is amazing.
So anyway, it turns out to be country roots music shit, which I know Eric's a bigger fan of than I am.
I like it.
And yeah, they're getting.
I would probably enjoy Buell's performance.
Yeah, and I don't dislike it automatically.
Yeah. So I picture Buell the person as like Kid Rock, but I picture Buell the singer as being like Chris Stapleton.
Okay,
All
I
right.
can see that.
Yeah. Okay.
Little Steel Drivers action, maybe.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So she ends up getting lightly sexually harassed by Buell, and he comes over to her table because I assume either he thought she was attractive or Mary Alice signaled him that he needed to kiss her ass.
Yeah.
And Chevette sees Carson, her ex, enter the club. And she immediately does the classic fucking sitcom / rom-com thing of grab Buell's face and kiss him so that...
Except she doesn't do it with a handsome guy that leads to a fun meet cute. She does it with a horrific
she does it
swamp
with,
creature.
She does it with an alcoholic dancer head.
Yeah, and he has future meth still on his gums, which
Yeah.
a little.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Taste.
Yeah, and then we move on. So we're back to Rydell. He gets a call from Durius back at the Lucky Dragon in LA. Durius mentions this new kiosk they're getting, and how the owner of that Lucky Dragon, or the franchisee of that Lucky Dragon, is still pissed at Rydell and suspects, praise God, of stealing the glasses. It's really not important, except for he mentions this new kiosk going in right next to the ATM. It's definitely not going to be a plot point going forward. Okay, so Fontaine talks to his lawyers about how the fuck did this kid get, like, what should I do about this kid getting access to the safe deposit box things? His lawyer is this guy Marshall, who's out of the African Republic, who has some interesting views about how to retain control in the collapse of civil society. It's not great news. Chevette bails the fuck out of the club. She is high off the dancer in Buell's mouth and heads towards Oakland. She runs into one of her old buddies, whose name I don't have written down, who was a messenger in Virtual Light, and he mentions Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
So she's
a leg injury or something. Yeah.
Yeah, he got all fucked up bunnying off a cop car.
Cool.
And yeah, it's honestly,
it'd be much cooler if he was keying the name of a podcast into the cop car. But
yes, do that, please. Astronomica.com. Astronomicapodcast.com. Sorry.
Thank you.
So she's going to go, she decides, I'm going to go see Fontaine. And one thing, here's a
fucking Pert's back.
So in this section of chapters, we have Barry talking to Ray. And one thing that Gibson really missed about the future is that we're all constantly concerned about the charge of our devices.
That's true.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that because she's just popping out. I was like, how much battery does this thing have?
Exactly. So he plugs in the fucking thermos and she pops out. And I was like, there's a little bit of hassle in the text about finding an outlet in his, coffin hotel room of the B&B. And I was like, man, that's something he missed hugely, because even if it's not something I think of consciously, I am always aware of when I am going to get my next charge. Mm-hmm. Like it's a whole thing. So, Ray doesn't know a whole lot more about what's going on than Barry does, except that Lainey, she thinks that Lainey thinks that the world is going to end soon, in a very millenarian type of thinking. She's Lainey is of the mind that the world ends and a new one begins, in the same way that a lot of the heretical Christian sects of the 11 and 1200s were. It's not that the world's going to cease to exist, but the world is going to take a new form, I guess.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know how close this is at this point, but Lainey's convinced it's pretty close, and he must have put them there for a reason. So that's kind of where we're at. Boomzilla, he heads into the fucking Lucky Dragon with the $50 he got from Chevette and Tessa. He gets some fucking candy, some fucking noodles, sees a truck pulling up outside, and installs some stuff in the Lucky Dragon. And this stuff is, this installation process is repeated on all the screens outside the Lucky Dragon. So it's apparently a big fucking deal. Anyway, he gets these noodles that are he gets this candy that's like a drug lab, which I equate
Fun Dip or something.
I equate to, those Fun Dip things.
Yeah.
I can say for a fact that based on my children's purchases in Sweet Noshings, the candy store near us, there is a whole level of candy technology that has, if anything, exceeded what Gibson's wildest dreams are.
I awesome. Believe it. Like 10 years ago, I went into a fancy candy store with my niece and nephew, and I was mind blown by the technology encompassed by candy.
It takes a lot of effort, and some would say a certain kind of talent, to design a plastic toilet that dispenses candies with the sound of a fart.
Oh man! Well, at least
realistic, bespoke coil.
Bespoke coil. Tech has a wait a minute. Bespoke. Brian Adams makes bad music. Okay.
The street makes its own uses for things.
Yeah, I was going to say technology has ruined modern society, but at least we get that out of it.
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chevette runs the fuck out of the club after she kisses Buell because she's now slightly high on Dancer. And this chapter is called Vincent Black Lightning. It's great. She ends up finding Fontaine's shop. And we have a discussion of the changes to the bridge over the past, 7 or so years. It's some amount of time. And also discussions about the past and Skinner and how Skinner asked for her when he was dying because Skinner's dead now. And Fontaine gives her a knife that she had previously, in a previous chapter, mentioned she saw getting forged out of the chain of a Vincent Black Lightning motorcycle.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It was a very cool motorcycle. Never rid one, but it seems like a good ride. And he gives her this knife because Skinner said it was for her. And it's, again, another chapter where I am drawn like a fucking fly to regret and grief. So, good times. History hurts, everybody.
Also, it's a weird kid with the goggles on.
Yeah, there's a weird kid in the corner. Don't worry about it. So
this is also when I realized that kid's only been there for like a few hours. You're like deep in the book and like, oh, this is all taking place very quickly.
Yeah, Fontaine's had the shop up for like 10 hours now.
Yeah.
So we cut to Lainey. We get a history of the past couple of years. Him teaching Ray Toei and his descent into his Harwood obsession. And then we get some more about the death of history. And Lainey has started to feel another consciousness observing the things that he watches.
Uh-oh.
Like Lainey exists in the center of this panopticon where he can see everything, but he can also feel something else watching him. What is it? We don't know. He calls Barry. So Barry wakes up. Ray's in sleep mode or something, I guess. And at Lainey's instruction, Barry goes ahead and goes to the murder scene of Raton and Playboy and finds kills, which is a brand that Eric and I know well.
Yeah, although the announcer or the narrator called it Kill Z. So I don't know if it was supposed to be the same brand that currently exists.
It's exactly Kills. Like in the book, it is spelled Kills.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a currently available product that
I used a shit ton of while I was listening to this.
Yes.
Although our Kills is more focused on mold than blood.
And just stains in general.
There are versions of Kills that are specifically focused on biological materials.
Oh, wow.
This is not an ad for Kills, although, god damn, I would love to sponsor Kills.
Oh, fuck, man.
I love
if we
that
could get Kills
so
as a sponsor, God, that is, oh, man, that smell. That Kills smell. It's
so unpleasant.
It's
so
so
clean.
unpleasant, but so clean.
Anyway.
So people have slapped some biomaterial eliminating paint over the stains from Raton and Playboy. And he has and Barry has no idea what to do next. So then we cut to the Ghost in a cab on the way to the Transamerica building, which you've definitely seen in media, even if you aren't aware of it. It's a big, tall pyramid in the middle of San Francisco. He's meeting Carwood. He gets his knife taken off of him and, all the other obvious stuff. Not his belt. Don't worry about it. His belt, by the way, is made of like smart materials that'll cease being flexible when given a specific cue and become very sharp and double-edged.
That's some anime shit.
Yeah, it is. It's also real.
Cool.
To a certain point.
Well, anime is real. We all know this.
Yeah, exactly. I go Super Saiyan
every goddamn day.
Yeah. I'm recording this from the cockpit of my Evangelion unit. So,
sweet.
If you have an Evangelion, you could fly over and we could do this live.
Good point.
that is
fuel is very expensive for those things, though. So
I don't know. I start turning into a biblically accurate angel if I go too far.
So basically,
20 minutes, Josh.
Harwood is pointing the Ghost at Barry, saying, like, look, I have this video of this guy investigating the murders you did. And Conrad's like, okay, so? Anyway, he gets distracted by the model of a lucky dragon on the bridge that Harwood has in his office and thinks it is a terrible fucking thing. And this is the section where Harwood talks about bohemias and autonomous zones.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to read this very bad, but I'm not going to. This is a lot in reference to what in Americanist history we call frontier theory, where all societies need a frontier where they can shunt off the people that do not fit entirely within that society. And then those people eventually end up expanding and to some degree, to a lesser degree, expanding that society. It's a really interesting set of historical theorems that, aren't disproven. It's part of why we have wars. We need to expand the frontier. Arguably the last of
Greenland would be a good place to put a bunch of those weirdos.
Yeah,
it's ripe for a lucky dragon.
Really is.
I'm guessing there are Dollar Generals in Greenland.
Honestly, I don't know. Huh.
I kind of hope not.
Wouldn't surprise
me too.
Yeah.
Good luck to the Greenlanders.
Yeah. Rooting for you.
Yeah. Our last big national frontier was the Philippines.
Oh, yeah.
Which, didn't work out kind of as the previous plans had hoped. But whatever.
Didn't really work out well for anybody.
Nah, it wasn't great. Let's see. So we go back to Lainey. We meet some more citizens of the Wall City. They are observing Harwood in a way that Lainey is surprised by. They are tapped into his phone calls somehow, magically, and it turns out that Harwood dosed himself with the 5SB that Lainey got in the orphanage intentionally, because Harwood wants the hyperfocus and ability to predict nodal points that Lainey has unintentionally.
He wants this curse that Lainey's got.
Yeah. And they show him some video.
Classic evil guy shit.
Yeah. He sees a curse as a gift and operates as such.
If the world is to be reborn, I wish to be reborn in it as something akin to what I am today.
Yeah, he says that in slightly different terms about 3 more times through the rest of the book. And that is the point of all billionaires. They want to retain their position. The very rich are not human like we are.
Until we lobotomize them.
Yeah.
The liches.
Yes.
Until we lobotomize them.
Yeah. So they... Libya and Paco, who are the world citizens.
God damn, I'm sorry. I think lobotomized billionaires has legs. It's like
I don't think it's a bad idea. Maybe
I'm gonna make a poster.
Maybe I should start carrying an ice pick with me.
Yeah.
Wait, delete that. Sorry.
No, it's for ice. You have many drinks to make.
Yeah, immigrations, customs enforcement.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Oh god damn it.
Fuck.
Oh, press on.
Okay, so they, Libya and Paco, the walled city denizens, show him a video of Harwood ordering a death, and probably it's not certain, but probably Conrad's, certainly the capture and elimination of Barry Rydell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, we go back to Chevette. She's heading back to the bar. She's kind of sobered up by this point. She's no longer on future meth, trying to avoid Carson, and thinks about her and Rydell in L.A. And this is where we get the big section about how the lady from the network said he looked fat.
Yeah.
And he was just a bummer on a couch. Then
also, gotta read a quote. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Once again, she got that feeling that she loved this place, but wasn't really a part of it anymore. Kind of twisted in like a hook. Not a big feeling, but sharp and deep.
I have that same one. I have that same fucking quote highlighted.
Yeah.
I feel that way when I log on to World of Warcraft.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 45.
No.
Great chapter. It is titled Jack Move, which I believe I mentioned in a previous episode of this show. So it's a Rydell chapter. He leaves the crime scene where he's, where Ramon and Playboy's blood was. He's getting followed by at least 3 military type guys. And he's becomes aware of this because, they might be cool mercenaries, but they're not the best at being real people on the street. Ends up
on the street. Sorry, go ahead.
People on the street.
No, it's not a tangent.
He pulls a fucking Jack move, which involves pulling that ceramic switchblade out, cuts through a canvas wall, walks into the coolest card game of all time. Walks out, is very glad to have escaped said card game because it seemed like the type of place where, I don't know, he might get murdered, and then gets punched the fuck down as he turns a corner going down the hallway, because it turns out that the people who were following him were aware of, side exits, basically. So he's about to get fucking captured and beat shit. And then a dude in a fucking Loden trench coat with round glasses shows up and absolutely executes the guy who has broken his ribs, and says, "Come with me, please," very politely.
If you want to live.
Yeah.
Are you armed? I have a knife in my right pocket. Please keep it there.
Please keep it. Yeah. Yeah. Conrad is unfailingly polite.
He puts up with a lot of shit too.
Unless he is slipping a fucking knife blade between the vertebrae of of an enemy.
Yeah.
Or of someone who needs to have a knife blade between their vertebrae, and that's just how the Tao works.
Can name him a couple. Sorry.
Yeah, you're okay. Chevette gets back to the bar. Tessa's got her drones up and is floating around the bar ceiling. Buell's performing. And Chevette ends up going up into the light box where Tessa is, meets the light man, who is seemingly a complete fucking jerk off, who is probably friends with Chevette's ex-boyfriend from Virtual Light. And this is where cognitive dissonance is mentioned again. And they talk about some pop music, and this guy is way too cool for her.
Yeah.
And Chevette's like, what the fuck ever. I guess I'll hang out here until the show's done and Tessa's done taping it. Whatever. We end up with Lainey. He's in Walled City in an imaginary road in a barber shop, and he's talking about nodal points and 5SB and Harwood, and mentions that the upcoming nodal point is the biggest one since 1911, not 9/11, which would be an easy thing to make, an easy mistake to make.
Yeah,
if you're reading this in this current century.
Everybody always asks what happened in 1911, and there's never really an answer.
Well, I think so. Gibson, there was an interview with Gibson where he said he deliberately chose a time where like global society, Western society in particular, was in flux, but that there wasn't specifically something that you could say this is when the world changed.
There wasn't an immediate crisis.
Yeah,
right. So this is because he wanted it to be something that only a 5SB influenced person would see the significance of.
Yeah,
gotcha. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've talked about nodal points. I don't think in the previous episode in any depth, maybe in Idoru, but there are points where history is changing, where history has to change through some means. So I'm going to leave it at that because, running out of time. So Lainey explains to the Walled City people that because Harwood took the 5SB, he's worked himself towards the center of the nodal point. And the Walled City people mentioned that one of the big things with Harwood is that he is huge into nanotechnology. He was a big shareholder in the Sunflower Corporation from Virtual Light, who were the people who were going to rebuild San Francisco with nanotechnology like they had with Tokyo. And Harwood has partnered with the Lucky Dragon for this dumb, cool nanofax thing that's going on all over.
That fact is more evidence to the idea that what's his name was the killer of the courier, by the way, if Harwood was involved with the Sunflower Corporation.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's totally fine. Yeah. And there's a very funny line at the end of it where Lainey's talking about how, obviously they can't, there are laws against nano things, building nano assemblers. And the Walled City people are like, laws against stuff. Nation states, remember them?
How cute.
Yeah, childish for him to even bring him up. So, back to Rydell. He's got a broken rib. And he's following behind the ghost, who is very polite, and shows Rydell the Tanto knife with which he severed the bodybuilder's spinal cord without once contacting bone, because that's how the Tao worked out.
Yeah.
And Conrad has decided he's on Rydell's side against the mercenaries, and he's going to try and get him off the bridge to get medical attention because Rydell had some broken ribs. And Rydell's like, what if they find us? And Conrad's like, don't anticipate the outcome. Await the unfolding events. Live in the moment. And I can only imagine how annoyed Barry must be at that. Because
in the moment, Rydell decided he knew for a fact his ass was lost, just plain lost.
As much as I crave being as in the moment as Conrad thinks he is, God, I am aware of how annoying that would be to be around me.
Imagine being a pawn pulled between that and Lainey, who is this ultimate seer. It just would have
Live
to
in
be
the future.
infuriating.
Yeah. So we head on. Conrad mentions that he and the mercenaries have the same employer, sort of. The mercenaries are guys with very fancy, full-color pamphlets available, and are bright young things. Rydell realizes that this whole thing is fucking insane. What situation am I in? I am with a hired killer being hunted by other killers hired by the same guy. Basically,
I'm carrying a hologram of an artificial intelligence.
Yeah, bails out and ducks into a bar. It turns out to be the bar where fucking Buell is playing. And because he wants to ditch Conrad, because this is insane. And there's a minor confrontation where Barry walks in and is like, "Hey, Buell." And Buell is like, "Oh, so is this guy who's following you? Is he some kind of gay?"
Thanks, Buell.
It's
never changed.
Very, very accurate. And we end up sitting with Mary
Chevette
Alice.
looks at Barry's back at one point, I believe. It's very, very near miss, like a movie.
Yeah. He ends up sitting with Mary Alice and plugging the thermos in. And Mary Alice meets Ray, and it's pretty cute. Two characters that avoided each other for a whole novel. And Barry is Rydell's going to dodge and make a phone call, and the chapter ends just as the bescarfed mercenary walks in. And then we cut away from the fun part.
If the scarf was special made, it would be a bespoke mercenary. Sorry, that was not what's stopping the flow for.
Good job. No, dude, you're learning new vocabulary, and that's important. Good for you.
Thanks. Also,
gotta keep learning.
Get a little glimpse behind the curtain of Ray. She knows Conrad, who not even Lainey knew.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Conrad is known by his absence. Yeah.
But she knows his name.
Yeah, she knows a lot. So we end up going back to Lainey, and we cut to a really interesting scenic part where Lainey is meeting with Klaus and the Rooster in a replicated version of a Tokyo bar that Lainey had enjoyed when he, was a people as opposed to a cardboard box dweller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The bar is called The Reason of Life, where the upstairs is absolutely covered. All the walls are covered with images of Japanese girls standing over antique cameras and triggering their shutters. And the basement is full of the results of those cameras and their shutters. And it's a really very specific thing, which I assume William Gibson probably saw in person. It's just such a specific mode that it feels real. So he and the Walled City people try to figure out what Harwood's doing. And Harwood is trying to beat the curve. And he is the richest man in the world now and wants to remain that. In case there's an entirely new status quo after this nodal point. He wants to shape the new reality to his liking in the same way that they do in the Walled City. But the problem with Harwood doing this is that he will not be allowing anybody to opt out. Walled City is a volunteer thing. You don't have to deal with Walled City if you're not in it. But Harwood is going to try and remake the world to his image.
Oh, God,
and
that's
Walled
relatable.
City is a consensus reality that all of them contribute to. Harwood wants to take over and sculpt it to his own devices.
Yeah.
I fucking hate how
I know
prescient that is.
I know. Chapter 52, My Boyfriend's Back. So the concert's ending. Buell is talking to a big guy in a jacket who Chevette's who Chevette can see the back of. Chevette tries to convince Tessa to go back to the van and get away from this fucking light guy who is an annoying prick and is likely to end up in the future of William Gibson's shitheel ex-boyfriend's club. So we're gonna. Chevette goes downstairs to pick up the drones that Tessa has out, and she sees Carson and immediately gets punched in the face.
Yeah, that dude did not fuck around.
No, it's and then shit goes absolutely fucking haywire. Carson is about to hit her again, and suddenly Barry is there and takes fucking Carson down. And he also has a look of surprise on his face to see Chevette. As Carson's standing backed up, he gets punched in his, as we know, broken fucking ribs, and makes an animal sound and collapses. And then a guy in a scarf shoots Carson point blank in the torso. And then the lights go out.
And then fucking the Adoru starts whipping fireballs around. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're light balls. They don't do any damage, but they can definitely fuck your vision up.
Yeah, in a completely dark room. Getting flooded.
I just like that she got in on the fight, man. That was sick.
Yeah. So then we cut over to Barry's viewpoint.
I mean, it's a full-on bar brawl, right?
Yeah.
Like, with a hologram artificial intelligence lady in the middle of it, just joining in. It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's a barroom blitz.
It's a ball.
Yeah. So we switch over to Barry's viewpoint, and he knows the scarf is a pro the second the shot goes off because he buried his pistol in Carson's torso and pop without any hesitation at all. Ray distracts Scarf Merc by bouncing around like fucking Tinkerbell, basically. Barry grabs Chevette, cuts through the wall with Switchblade, which breaks, like a plywood wall, and gets the fuck out. They are both confused as to why the fuck they are there. Why the other one is there. And then he realizes, oh shit, I left the fucking projector. And then suddenly Conrad walks up with the projector and the duffel bag, and says, we need to go to Oakland. There are certainly guards where these mercenaries came in. And where, Rydell basically says, she's part of our team now. You have to protect her too. And Conrad's like, okay, I guess that's how the Dow works.
And the team's going to get bigger, buddy.
Yeah, it certainly is. We go to Lainey. He gets some more supplies from the suit, hangover cure, cough syrup, etc. Like you do. Sees some surveillance of Harwood, who gets a phone call from the mercenaries. And Harwood tells the mercenaries, yeah, you guys are all going to die because you came to Conrad's attention. I told you to stay out of his way unless you could eliminate him cleanly. You're all fucking dead.
I also like Harwood right before that was giving an interview and keeps cussing out the interviewer and like saying vile, awful things and then blaming it on the
I'm sorry, your translation
software.
Problem seems to be your translation software
fucking
seems to be
hilarious.
Issues. Yeah, it's a good bit of business.
Yeah.
Showing his disdain for the rest of humanity. But yeah, it's going to be really cool. People will be able to send a toy from Paris to Spokane with a cunt-ass. No, I certainly didn't say cunt-ass.
Yeah.
So
disagreeable cat? No, you must be hearing things.
Yeah. And it's also at this point that Lainey realizes he's going to die. That he is
the rest of us. He caught up to what the rest of us could clearly see.
Maybe already dead, but he knows it. So back to Fontaine. Somebody's knocking on his fucking door, and it turns out it's Chevette, Barry, and Conrad. He takes him in, tapes Barry's ribs up because he obviously used to be a quarterman for a fighter.
Fontaine and Barry would be buds. I
They
think
really
in
would
world.
be.
They're very similar.
I would read the hell out of that series of books.
I absolutely would. Yeah. And then Conrad meets Silencio again, and turns so Conrad basically asks Fontaine, "Hey, you got a gun?" And Fontaine says, "Yeah, here, I got this 22." Leans a little to the left, and Conrad goes, "Okay, I'm going to kill them. There are a bunch of guys after us who are bright, young, happy mercenaries, and lock it after me. I'm going to take care of them before they get to us."
TCB.
Yeah, and he takes off. Rydell cannot handle this. The gang is hiding in the back of Fontaine's. Rydell can't deal with the waiting, and Fontaine ends up giving him a Russian chain gun, which he had been holding from his lawyer, or holding for his lawyer, Marshall, which is only a gun in a sense.
Yeah.
It is a gun for people who cannot be taught to fire a gun. It is
a handheld semi-directional claymore mine.
Yes. It fires 1 foot lengths of steel chain in, I don't remember what the amounts are, but it's effectively, a claymore, a very directional claymore. And it's a single use, not reloadable at all, or, 3 use. So Barry gets this, moves within view of the shop windows, and then somebody across the street starts shooting out those fucking windows. It's one of the goddamn mercs. Rydell ducks, fires the gun when it pops up while the person across the street are reloading, and they are a milkshake across the street.
Yeah.
It's seemingly ungood.
Effective tool.
Yeah, 400 2-foot lengths of super fine steel chain, sharp as razor wire.
Mm-hmm. Which sounds like the most dangerous thing I can imagine, just about. So then we move on to shortly afterwards. Fontaine's picking up the pieces. A bunch of watches are damaged. Claire's going to be pissed when she finds out the terrible fucking dolls got shot and they're leaking fucking silicone everywhere. And he ends up dragging them out to the sidewalk in front of the shop. They're just horrible, realistic babies leaking silicone juice.
Yeah.
And we see Tessa's camera platform on his Mylar balloon pops up for no fucking reason, seemingly.
Hasn't the bridge started burning at this point?
We are now at that point. Yeah.
Okay.
So we go back to Lainey. He gets a call. He overhears a call between Harwood and Scarf Merc. Scarf had a 5-man team. 2 are dead by the ghost. 1 is by Barry. Others are radio silent.
They are also dead by the ghost, I think.
They are absolutely also dead by the ghost. He just doesn't have confirmation of that. We get a view of a single, like a mercenary with just a bullet hole where his pupil was from the 22 Fontaine gave Conrad. The mercenaries are way over their heads. This place is way too inherently unstable. And fortunately, they have a backup plan. They've been planting incendiaries as they came through the bridge. And the fire's going to start from both ends. But we've got an escape plan. And Harwood says, okay, do it. Fine, whatever. And the scarf guy triggers the incendiaries.
It's been noted way back in Virtual Light that fire is kind of the Achilles heel of the
danger
bridge.
Of the bridge, as it has been on occupied bridges throughout history.
Yeah.
And on this bridge, you'll get your throat cut for flicking a
cigarette
butt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so the next chapter is Chevette. It's shortly after the last chapter where she's in shock. Conrad shows up with the empty gun, which he hands to Fontaine. And Barry gets a phone call from Lainey. The bridge is burning. They smell the bridge burning It is a terror to everybody who is on the bridge because there's nowhere to fucking escape. They plug the thermos in, and this is the point where Ray explains, or I don't know, I guess, where Ray talks to Conrad very directly and explains that, becomes the girl from his dream. And both Lainey and Ray say to leave the projector where it is. It'll be fine. Tessa shows up, I don't know where, on a fucking three-wheeler. They take the fuck off. Fontaine, the boy, and Conrad and the projector remain. The rodents are running all over the bridge because they know shit's gone bad. Fontaine goes ahead and sweeps up because he likes to keep busy.
Yeah, I've related to that hard.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, he puts the dolls out on the sidewalk. We go back to Lainey. We have a convo. He actually meets sort of Harwood through unknown means. And Harwood reiterates that he's trying to make the world with himself as the central point. And Harwood mentions that he took the 5SB because Lainey's test results, like specifically.
I also like that Harwood has seen the same 1911 nodal point.
Yeah, he mentions. Yeah, he mentions. I would love to discuss that.
It's like a meme among the 5SB users.
Yeah. It turns out that Harwood never became a stalker like Lainey and everybody else who was ever dosed with 5SB did. Possibly because Lainey is simply too self-obsessed to begin with, so he stalked himself.
Yeah,
that
makes sense.
And he's gonna get offline for the duration of this shit. Everything's going bad. He gets. We cut to Silencio. He gets instructions to find this Rolex or this shit. I can't remember the brand. Futurematic watch.
Jaeger-LeCoultre.
Jaeger-LeCoultre. Yeah. And he dives in to find it. Rydell and Chevette are taking the fuck off. They end up getting dumped off the three-wheeler. They're near Skinner's old spot, so they decide they're going to go up and hopefully get out of the smoke and the fire at the top of the pylon that Skinner's room was at.
Chevette maybe doesn't understand how smoke works quite as well as Rydell, but what else are you going to do at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, like, thinking through it from her perspective, like, I don't know, maybe some of more of it'll blow away than it'll come up.
Yeah.
You know,
probably not, but yeah.
The logic makes some sense. It's better than running into fire. So they go up there. They find out that, oh, shit, somebody's in here pretty recently, and the gears on the funicular have ground. And they go up to the roof hatch and get punched in the face because Scarf Mercenary is there. So then we get Lainey. He's dying alone in a cardboard box. The plan is working, I guess.
Yeah.
So Fontaine chops a hole in his fucking wall so they can hopefully breathe. And then we end up on top of Skinner's room again, as we did 2/3 of the way through virtual light.
Yeah.
And Scarf has knocked Barry out. He's got a glider and like a real nice fucking sleeping bag and a bunch of equipment there because apparently they had rigged this area for their exfil operation. He knocked
Escape
Barry
from New York style.
Yeah, he knocked Barry the fuck out. He's like, all right, peace out, bitches. He puts on the fucking glider, and as he's about to take off, Chevette pulls the knife made from the Vincent Black Shadow chain and clips his wings. And without a sound, he spirals into the bay below.
Ha ha.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good bit of business. So Barry wakes up. Suddenly they are drenched in fucking water because this chapter is called Bulk Lift. And we had previously seen news stories about how bulk lifters were bringing fresh water down from the Arctic to feed SoCal. And apparently they've just been rerouted to put out the bridge because plans were in place because everybody kind of figured the bridge is going to burn one day.
Yeah. You know? San Francisco is famous for that.
It's not unfamous for that. Silencio traces the watch to a silver castle in the net. Rooster and Ray Toei follow him. Ray suggests he take the goggles off. And about that point, Fontaine has cut a big enough hole in the wall to go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say it's the bright one, which is what he calls Ray Toei.
Yeah.
It was really heartbreaking. He said, "She sounds like my mom, but kind."
Yeah, that was sad. Poor Silencio. Hey, Silencio ends up getting better than most characters in the book. So.
He does. So anyway, Fontaine punches a hole through the wall. Water gets dumped on him because the bulk lifters again. And Conrad departs through the front door. We go to Boomzilla. He is back in the fucking Lucky Dragon after watching the fire. He's at Lucky Dragon because they're giving out free fucking candy for the launch of this nanofax thing. They're sending, like, Singapore is sending a little Lucky Dragon statue to all the locations. It's going to be fucking cool. And he does some thought about how, what if I climbed in and got printed at other places? Would those guys be my bros, or would they be other Boomzillas?
Yeah.
And then
I think you should try it. I would love multiple Boomzillas running around.
Yeah.
He instantly realizes that he couldn't trust any of them, though.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. And as he's considering these implications, the printer fires up and Ray Toei walks out.
A naked Japanese girl.
A naked Japanese girl walks out of the printer, and he doesn't understand how to interpret this, and sees on his way out on the sign that this is happening at all of the other Lucky Dragon locations. So there are thousands and thousands of Ray Toei apparitions appearing in the world, nano-printed.
Nice.
That is in my opinion, that's my theory, that this is the nodal point.
Yeah, this is,
absolutely.
Yes, 1,000%. Yeah.
Is the thousands of rays in the world now.
Yeah.
Or if not the thousands of rays, just the ability to create a life.
Yeah. That is the nodal point in every real sense. So back to Rydell. He wakes up in a fancy sleeping bag with Chevette. Him and Chevette been fucking. More water got. They're trauma bonded.
Yeah,
doubly so
now. Yeah.
There's this Mylar balloon that shows up.
Oh.
And it turns out that she's got some footage that you would not fucking believe, which makes sense. And Barry walks off the roof to piss and finds Buell in in Skinner's room, and Buell's fucked, man. He's not even really from Tennessee. He's from New Jersey.
Yeah, poor bastard.
He's just alone and fucked up.
Coming down off of a dancer high.
Yeah.
Now
I feel bad for him a little bit, I guess.
I do. I mean, like, there are people who simply don't have a center. That's people just don't have a center sometimes. Mm-hmm. So, and now we're in the real epilogue, chapter called Courtesy Call. We're going to the Transamerica Tower again. Conrad, the ghost, is disarmed, searched, and cuffed and escorted by 7 armed guards. He's going to go up and meet Harwood. And fortunately, conveniently, these guards are maybe a little less experienced than they should be because they cuff his hands in front of him, where it's in very easy reach of his belt. And this is where the ghost and Harwood leave us.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
I think this is where Harwood leaves us permanently.
Yeah. In a very definite sense. Double-edged, 30 inches long, and molecule sharp. We cut to Scooter. We've missed Scooter. It's been since like the 12th chapter that we've seen him. He's going to Lainey's carton with a friend. Keithy! We missed Blackwell through this book.
Yeah, I was thinking about him the whole time.
Yeah, me too. Lainey is apparently deceased after Blackwell cuts off the roof of his carton. And we get a little explanation of how Lainey bailed on the island because he was running towards something rather than away from it. And that makes both Scooter and Blackwell a little sad, but life goes on. Back to the bridge. Fontaine, cleanup begins. Things are better than they could have been. The bridge got put out, luckily, way early.
Mm-hmm.
Silencio's helping him clean up the shop, and the thermos is now sitting empty on a shelf, metaphorically.
Yeah.
Clarice arrives, tells him that his kids are okay, and he explains the bad news about the horrible dolls, and they have a laugh. And then the real epilogue. Sometime in the distant future, we're in a watch shop on the bridge. Silencio's there. A kid brings him a watch, and he lays it on a nanotechnology repair bed, and it's magically repaired. And that's the end of the book. The future's here. Nanotechnology has infested every aspect of everyday life.
And Silencio is a humble watch repair person.
And he talks.
Mm-hmm. He's no longer Silencio. He's Talkativio.
All right, sure. Sure. Yeah, Talkativo.
Hablamo.
All right. I would love to talk about all we have to say about this book, but I know Geoff has a heart out.
Yeah.
So,
and I've got a heart out.
Maybe at some point we should do a Patreon or something. We can just wrap up our feelings on the whole Bridge trilogy, or maybe it deserves its own episode. I don't know.
I mean, I love it, and I would be happy to talk about it for several hours.
Yeah, I feel like this. We'll talk about after we get off the air. Okay, give us our fucking rating scale, Eric. Come on, we got to let Geoff out of here. I feel bad.
Oh, so now the part I do, you're rushing me.
I feel bad about that too. Okay, look, It's another thing I'm feeling bad about.
I want to go on another tangent about candy that you have to assemble.
Story. What do we think of the story of all tomorrow's parties? I think it was a pretty damn good story.
9/10.
Yep, I'd say 9.
I'm gonna say 10. I like the story.
There's a hole in it that you
Josh,
probably
you said
didn't
9/10.
I said 9/10.
What does that mean? 9 out of 10?
9 out of 10. Yes, there is a hole in it, which I will explain on our future bonus episode. How about that?
Okay. Influence, probably the lesser so of most of Gibson's books, like we mentioned.
Probably. I don't know, and lesser Gibson influence still means pretty high.
6, maybe?
That I was going to go 6.5, but fair. In my personal life, it's 10 out of 10 influence.
Sure. What do you think, Geoff?
I think social influence at large, I'd say probably a 7. Like it definitely did have an influence on other cyberpunk novels that were a little after it, but not in the sweeping way that the Sprawl trilogy did.
Yeah. It's I don't know, in my mind, it's the maturation of the genre.
Yeah.
And arguably the epilogue for the genre.
I want to say prescience. I'm going to give it a 9.5. I feel like that's, I feel like it deserves a 10, but
I think 9.5 is very fair.
9.9.
Creepily and just unsettlingly so in certain cases.
Yeah.
Man, Harwood, dude, is real, man. There's about 10 of them, well, probably more than that, probably 100 of them out there right now that need to meet Josh's ice pick. Style.
I think this is a 10 out of 10 on style. I think it is arguably Gibson's best written book.
Okay.
I'd say 10 out of 10 myself.
Yeah.
9 out of 10.
9?
Yeah.
And I think
2 out of 10? I'll kill you.
I'm going to go 8. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just think if we're comparing it to the other two in Virtual Light, just simply because like the futurism stuff that you said he drew back on, I think would contribute to a higher style rating personally.
I think that is a very reasonable position to take.
Style is a very subjective category.
I think in this one, I'm grading it purely on sentence by sentence and how the book hangs together, and it's a 10 out of 10 in my mind.
Hangs long and low, baby.
It fucking does. This book is a big swinging fucking dick.
All right. Hand raisers 1 to 5.
5.
Josh gives it a 5. Geoff?
Absolutely.
5. Absolutely.
Just because I said in the first episode I didn't like it as much, I'll give it a 4.5, but I did really like it. That's not really a slight.
Yeah.
Just by the math, I have to rate it slightly less than the others.
Yeah, I know that I have a pretty unreasonable and unusual affection for this book. So
yeah, it's like a little recall for me last week.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Geoff.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, it's among this trilogy is among my favorite, and this book is probably my favorite of the 3.
There you go. If you come this far and haven't read it, that was a mistake. You should have definitely read it.
Yeah. Improve your life. Read this fucking book, man.
Yeah. All right, Geoff, thank you so much for hanging out past your hard out and past Josh's hard on.
That's
I never said that.
Next
That's
week,
what I'm hanging on.
Just keep me hanging on. Ooh.
Next week, we're going to do an extreme about face, and we've decided we're going to watch a movie that we might actually not watch if we watch it and find out that it did not hold up well enough for us to talk about on the air. It is called, I don't remember what year it's from, 2002?
Sounds right. 2003?
It's called The Adventures of Pluto Nash, starring Eddie Murphy. Hey, I'm worried that some of the jokes might be very bad. So
I suspect there is going to be stuff that we will pointedly not talk about.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy has never told a joke that didn't hold up.
No, he's famous for that.
Geoff, let us get you out of here to your hooligans and stuff. Please promote Astronomica. You are the weird robot.
Yeah. I am the weird robot. Please go to astronomicapodcast.com. You can find links to our shows. You can subscribe to us on all fine podcatching apps. That's about it.
And the shitty ones. They carry you too.
Yeah. Thank you once again, Geoff, so much for coming back for this.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me. I really loved it. I'm sorry I did have the heart out and we didn't have more time to ramble on, but
look, honestly,
no, we needed it.
I'm kind of glad.
We need boundaries.
Yeah, because otherwise we'd keep going for another 2 hours, which is an episode we'll do in a couple of months.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
I'm down.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, everybody. Anybody got a quote to send us out on?
Oh, I did have one marked. Here we go. So it's Conrad, as he is heading up the Transamerica building. He's remembering, and he thinks, the bridge, behind him now, perhaps forever, is a medium of transport become a destination. Salt air, scavenged neon, the sliding cries of gulls. He has glimpsed the edges of a life there that he feels is somehow ancient and eternal. Apparent disorder arranged in some deeper, some unthinkable fashion. Adios, 1900s.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Can't wait for Pluto Nash.
This has been the High Tech Low Life podcast. Find us on Twitter at Johnny60seconds, email us at hightechlowlifepodcast@gmail.com, and find us on Patreon at patreon.com/hightechlowlife. Theme music by Nihilor at nihilor.com. Thank you for listening.
Keep it moving. Come on, what are you waiting on? Let's go.
They're trashing our rights, man! They're trashing the fluid data! They're trashing! Trashing! Trashing!
Everybody,
Fight the planet!